the screen of redirection.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Good evening and welcome to the October 20th meeting, 2021 meeting of the Litchfield School Board. Call the meeting to order and start the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Let's see. Any revisions or
Just got in? Nope.
to the agenda?
We're good.
Awesome. All right. Summary of non-public actions from October 6, 2021. Mr. Burke made a motion to approve the non-public minutes of September 15th, 2021. Mrs. Ames seconded. The motion carried 5-0. Mrs. Harrison made a motion to accept the nomination of Derek Perella as LMS physical education teacher at a salary of $40,997, prorated for the 2021-22 school year. Mrs. Ames seconded. The motion carried 5-0. Presentations and recognitions. I don't believe we have any this evening.
We do not.
All right. Community input. There is no one in attendance besides the board and Ms. Woodman.
And bear with me. I'm
Yep,
logging into
That's
the
fine.
public link.
Yep. And if you aren't able to call or join the Google Meet in time for this public's community input, we will have another session at the end of the meeting. The link for the Google Meet is meet.google.com/HAR-JANA-HNK. And the phone number to call in is 1-662-565-5146. And the PIN is 911-992-355#.
And I just logged in and there's nobody waiting for us in the virtual
right.
room.
Great. I guess we will proceed as indicated on the agenda. Brian, do we have correspondence?
I have two. Both forwarded from you, Tina, to the board.
Okay.
The first one on 10/13 was from Jeff Stumpo, thanking the board for enforcing a sensible mask policy at GMS, and he appreciates our efforts in comparison to some other districts. And the other forwarded from you on 10/15 from the New Hampshire School Board Association. It was a formal response that they sent out to the September 30th letter from the National School Board Association to President Biden requesting federal assistance because of threats and violence at school board meetings, and that is not the stance the New Hampshire School Board is taking, and they do not agree with the letter that was sent by the National Board. So they're just letting their members know that they did not endorse that, nor do they endorse the thought process behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't know if everybody had received that or. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. So, superintendent comments.
So a couple of updates for the board tonight. I want to just talk for a second about bus routes. So bus routes have settled out pretty much the way they do each year. They always are a little bit slower at the beginning as parents and students and schools get accustomed to the whole routine. But we've sort of hit the stride at this point, and the routes are running pretty close to the times that we have provided on the route sheet. So Michelle is now in the process of doing audits on the buses to make sure that students are getting on the correct bus. We've discovered a few families that are getting picked up on the wrong bus or putting their child onto the wrong bus. And so we're just kind of redirecting that. And once we have it finalized, we'll make sure the drivers understand these are the stops, this is where you go, here's who you should have, just for clarity's sake on that. I've been asked to find out why one of our buses is quote unquote the Partridge family bus, because apparently we have 8 fairly new buses and one that looks like it came from Brooklyn again.
That was the one I saw today that I emailed you about.
A name.
Yeah. So would you reach out to Sean, please, and
It's
just
bus 3.
inquire as to.
Well, there was one today. It's an old first student bus, but this has been ongoing for probably last month. It's been 1, 2, 3 sometimes old buses.
Yeah.
I
remember last time I mentioned it to him. He mentioned that sometimes they pull a sub driver from a different district. They're in a first student bus, and in the interest of time to get the bus here, to run the routes on time. They just send them in the bus they're in.
Well, I
So-
hope come wintertime, they're not going to do that. We know what the problems were with older buses here in the winter.
Let's just inquire, because we did have all those nice new buses and
That's exactly what it is, because when I had the transportation meeting with him,
Yep.
we asked him about that. And it is it is a sub driver who has that particular bus, and it's just send that out.
got it.
We have expressed that we would really prefer to have our own.
Our own bus back.
Yeah.
And then there, I know there's been communication among the board just about the dismissal times at GMS. Dan's looking into that. He'll get back to us all. He and I have reviewed it and discussed pretty in depth. I think I understand the concerns. I've relayed those, but as the one who has to figure out how to get all those students safely onto cars and buses, I'm letting him respond with why things are done the way they are. So we'll continue to monitor that. And with the parent, there was one parent concerned because their child had a longer, was the last child off the bus. So of course it's about a 30-minute drive to get there. But I did point out they were also at school within 3 minutes in the morning because it's the opposite effect. So, you can't be the first one off and the last one on. At some point, the bus has to do its route. So, the short run in the morning does result in a longer ride in the afternoon.
But at least they go into the school. They don't have to wait a half an hour to be put on a bus in the afternoon.
Safely at school.
Safely at school. They're safely at school. That's what. My neighbors, this is your comment time. I'm not gonna say anything.
No, it's just,
Yeah,
we are monitoring the bus situation and doing our best.
and I have told the people that have mentioned it that they need to reach out because there are 11 children in my neighborhood now who are now on the bus for 35 minutes. And 3 of them are kindergartners, and some of the behaviors they're seeing is not good. And I said, you need to reach out to Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah.
Right.
You can't, this is stuff for all children, not
Right.
just your children. And there's nothing we can do about it until we know about it. You can't fix what you don't know.
Yeah.
So,
But getting, it really needs to go to the principal
Yep.
first
Right.
so that he gets a chance to resolve that. And
Yep.
so please encourage anybody
did.
with a concern to reach out to the principal.
Great.
Enrollment projections, this is just a follow-up because we did this at the last meeting, right? Am I losing my mind? We did this.
I don't think it was presented to us.
Oh,
No.
No.
we did not do this. I
No.
apologize. I have presented this to the principals and I felt like I had presented to you. So perfect. Let me walk you through what we have come up with so that you understand where we are with this. So if you click on it for a second, the spreadsheet is cleaned up a little bit. So you'll notice at the very top, there's not as much historical data. We kept it all. There are hidden cells in the spreadsheet. So if you wanted to know what happened in 2005, you could ask us and we can unhide them. But for clarity's sake, it seemed unnecessary to present everything that had happened in the past. So we just anchored on the last 4 years and left those visible to you. I want to point out that the orange bar are the projections we made 1 year ago. So we had said that we would have 417 students in K through 4. And we have 417 students in K through 4 because the green bar is the actual. All right. Now, we didn't get it right grade by grade, but we're pretty close. And the overall impact was really close. At the middle school, we predicted 352 and we came in at 355. So we picked up 3. And at the high school, we predicted 426 and we came in at 429. So again, up by 3. Remember, those predictions were made based on the beginning of the COVID impact, right? So, but overall, as a district, we're at 1235 predicted and 1238 actual. So we feel pretty good about where the numbers have fallen. And if you're wondering why the district's only up by 3, but it looks like we should be up by 6, I have to look into that. I just picked up that. I thought it was going to be because of pre-K not being included. I think that's what it is. Even though it says total P through 12, I think it's the total K through 12 and the 3 student. Oh, no, that's what it is.
Yeah.
The total
See
P
it
through
other way
12,
Yeah.
and we're down 3 in pre-K from our prediction. That's what's causing that impact on it.
Yeah.
But overall, our methodology is holding up pretty well,
That's pretty solid.
and we're hitting where we need to be. So we followed the same methodology forward. You can see that next year we're predicting that Griffin will have a little bit of a drop. We're predicting to come in at 405. Mainly that's because the fourth grade class is the large class. And so as they move up to the middle school, it's going to take, a dozen students or so out of Griffin. The middle school is going to benefit from that larger class because you can see that the prediction for the fifth grade is to be at 101. So it'll be the first time that the middle schools had a class over 100 in a few years. But that is really that's a bubble class. It's going to work its way through the system. It's not the trend. And when you look back at, what classes had looked like in the past, we had a lot of triple digit classes. That's not the trend going forward. And at the high school, we're predicting to land at 424. We're, so down about 5 students there. So overall, we feel the population will hold overall drop of 5 students, but we think we're in a steady boat.
Is that bubble class moving up to LMS next year a concern now that we have fourth grade or fifth grade in the building?
No, because it's really the 4 classes. They're going to be full classes. They're going to be 425s, but you're not adding a 5th class necessarily, although I do want to talk about that.
Yeah.
But that's basically where that lands.
Okay.
All right. So remember a couple of things. If you look down below the 3-year average, so we basically calculate what's been the change over the last 3 years. What was it 2 years ago? What was it last year? And what has it been this year? That gives us a total change that we've seen over that 3-year window. We average that out, and then we add it to the rising number, and that's how we make that prediction. So that methodology has proven to be pretty helpful and pretty accurate. And then if you carry it down, you get into the staffing projection part of the sheet, and you can see last year what we had for staffing levels, this year what we have for staffing levels in green, so that's the current, and then yellow is the prediction. So as it currently stands, we are predicting that our kindergarten will drop by 1. So we will go from 5 kindergartens back to 4. We're predicting the first grade will increase by 1 because the kindergarten is currently at 82, and our sense is that we're going to gain a few based on the history we've seen. So that's really a transfer from kindergarten to first grade from a staff. And then we're predicting to lose a third grade teacher and to lose a fourth grade teacher. Now, remember that all of that is based on current guidelines, right? Mm-hmm. So the column that says class size guide, because fourth grade benefits from having a class size of 23, and I'm not sure they would agree it's a benefit, but it changes there. That's why the number results in a loss of 1. So overall, it's a staff member change of -2 predicted at Griffin.
But they could go, if they were certified, they could go up to grade 6 if they were certified, or 7.
Yeah, so it doesn't mean the person, right?
Okay.
So in other words, if there were to be if a teacher retired at the middle school and they were certified to take that, they could be offered that opportunity to take that slot up. So typically, because of the number of retirements that we've been seeing, changes like this are usually absorbed through an attrition,
right,
and not a reduction. Although it is ultimately, there are fewer staff members there. I mean, he has 22 or 23 this year, and he would be at 21 next year. So it's 2 fewer staff members at Griffin. The other thing for the board to just pay attention to is that the 5th grade numbers, because it's based on 4 teachers in the 5th grade. So that is an average class size of 25.3, right? So it's 3 25s and a 26. So that's the reality of the way this is scheduled out. And, you can dig in a little bit deeper about, are there students who are in maybe specialized programming that aren't in the regular ed classroom, but you're only changing a class by a few noses. You're not talking a big shift in that number. So you're really looking at larger classes in fifth grade if we keep this model as predicted. So let me pause before I get into discussing the policy part. I just want to pause and see if you've got questions on how we got to where we are. And remember, these are October 1st enrollment predictions, but they've been pretty good.
Just think it's really close. I mean, I feel like the projections have been really pretty spot on, to be honest. I mean, to only be off by 3, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, the only thing I guess I'd note, and it's not a question, it's just that, because of the grade fluctuation for kindergarten, it was projected this year to only need 4, and we did end up needing that 5th. So it's possible we don't know. We could end up needing that 5th kindergarten teacher if we have enough enrollment at that point. So,
And kindergarten's always going to be the big question mark,
Yeah.
right? It used to be first grade.
Right.
And just so the board understands, if you look up above, we now have 3 years worth of data to make predictions on kindergarten because we were at 81, 76, and 65, with 65 being the COVID year. So it did go down. And then we came in this year at 82. So we're predicting 74 because we've based it on sort of the averaging of that.
Sure.
But, is it correct to average a 65 in there if we all think that was just artificially deflated by parents keeping some 5-year-olds home?
Right.
Not sure.
Do you not use the birth rate in town?
So
I was just curious.
The way it's been explained to me is that you're better off using the data of what you've
Okay.
actually seen coming in, because the birth rate, you can get that number and you can certainly make predictions. And I think the report that we have on enrollment from last year used birth rate data, but it proves not to be all that off of what you actually see.
Wasn't it Kyle who gave us the information that the birth rate in this town is different than, there's more kids than from the birth rate? So it's like
More kids in the birth rate?
It would predict a higher number. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
We have
Well,
a
you
higher
have
birth
people
rate. in
Birth rates are
Litchfield
lower
than
here,
other
but more
towns.
kids are
It's in
coming in.
Concord or
Ah.
Franklin or somewhere else that moved to Litchfield. That becomes part of our birth rate.
And we're high when it comes to kids coming in as opposed to being born here.
I just figured you could use the census and figure out how many 5-year-olds were in town, but
Yeah.
that's me. 10-year.
It's not.
In
I was just
it's
curious.
Always
In
just
migration,
who's here.
Right.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Okay.
give us the full
I'm
picture.
just curious.
There's some research too that birth rates right now are really skewed again by COVID. So
Absolutely.
it may not impact next year's kindergarten number, but down the road, it'll be a little bit less reliable. It's just caused, well, there's all sorts of demographic shifts that have occurred with this. So,
Okay.
all right. So that brings me to the policy discussion, right? So the board asked, and bear with me a minute, I got to find the darn thing.
Is that further down?
I don't think I added a link.
Yes.
Well, the policy is further down
Yeah.
on
Yeah.
the agenda.
Oh, do you want to do it now or do you want to hold off? We can certainly hold off on it.
Let's do it now while we're talking about enrollment.
All right. So what you have
If you don't mind,
linked,
Mary.
what you have linked is the existing policy. I'm going to read down the feedback that I got from the administrative team. And I'm going to start by looking at the chart. Okay. So basically the admin team feels strongly that the kindergarten number 18 is right, especially with the programmatic support being provided. And they feel that that's really had a very positive impact of the way people get off to a start. If you can see the screen, sorry, Brian and Tara's behind your head, but
Oh, I have it up.
but this is an amended one because what Dan is saying is that grades 1 through 4, he believes that should be changed so that grades 1 through 4 have 20 students. And I'll tell you why. He said the classrooms are identical. There's no difference in a 4th grade classroom than a 3rd grade classroom at Griffith. They're the same size. They've been built to the same standards. And he said, and the kiddos are just a little bit bigger. So we're putting a little bit bigger kids into the same size room, the same environmental conditions with windows, lights, whatever. But we're also adding 3 more into each one. And so his sense is that programmatically, hitting the reset button on the policy so that the fourth grade is included with grades 1, 2, and 3 would make sense. So that would be, you asked for feedback, that's feedback coming from your elementary school principal, and I'm sure the teachers there would echo that.
Are these rooms still? I thought something I heard when we were looking, I mean, in the process of looking, potentially at what the kindergarten classrooms. Are the sizes, I thought I heard that the sizes at GMS are actually smaller than what's recommended for today's classes too.
Much smaller in some cases. Yeah.
I'd have to go back and do an actual square, and we can do it. We can say square footage wise, this is what is recommended. Like if we were to
That's what I
build
thought I
new, this is
heard.
what we would build for, but this is what the size is in there.
But it's the same. I mean, I think the state standard is, isn't it? It's a certain number of square feet per student.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Well, you gotta be careful with state numbers too, because
Right.
they still have a class size of 30, I think.
I know.
But that's a reimbursement. They will
Oh, okay.
they will only pay you
Okay.
back on state aid. So, so many square feet per kid. So you can't overbuild a school.
Okay.
So you're telling me when my son was in fourth grade and there were 24 kids, he did not get a good education?
Oh,
I thought
did
he
not-
got a fabulous education.
I did not say that at all.
I don't think it has anything to do with it. I think, and he had the biggest kids that are all linebackers now, and their teachers are phenomenal, especially the fourth grade team. I don't see it. We need to start saving money to build a new school, and lowering class numbers isn't going to win the will of our taxpayers. And that's another reason why we need a new school for bigger classrooms. That's just my thought. I agree with the 20, the 18, the 21, but I don't think it's fair that a third grade classroom has 15 kids in it now. I think that's wrong. Well, the first graders have 19 or 20 in their room. There has to be a better way.
So I'm just curious what the recommendations are for the other grades because, here it's tapered up in terms of sizes, right? Kindergarten has 18, grades 1 to 3 has 20, and then 4 and 5 have 23, and then we move to 25. So
But they're all under 20 now, Tara. 16, 19, 17, 18, 18. We've met what they wanted without changing the numbers.
definitely no, we have.
Numbers,
But that
though.
what I'm
We have
saying
a
is if
fourth
we
grade teacher.
if we bring
The
the
number said we needed to.
Yeah.
And we did. So now we're at 18.5.
Right, but the reason why those numbers are low is because we added a teacher.
Right. So there wouldn't
And
be
then-
23 kids. in
But
the
there is
class.
96 now. So if we had waited 2 more weeks, we would not have added a teacher. And they would have been 24.
Right.
All 4 classes would have been above the 23. And that still wouldn't have hit the trigger number that we're saying that's listed in the policy. That's my concern, is that all 4 classes have to go over that 23 number in order to trigger the trigger number. But in order for that to happen, and I think that I have a concern with that.
So the other piece, if you look, and it's hard to see it because I did it in green, but so what Dan is saying is it really should be a 1 through 4 standard of 20. The middle school weighed in and said they would like a 5 and 6 standard of 23 that becomes a 7 and 8 standard of 25.
I
So their sense
agree with
was the
that.
staggering approach that they thought it should be elementary, which currently goes through 4, stays steady at 20. We up it to 5 and 6 at 23, and then we up it in 7 and 8. It's really 7 through 12 at 25 because the high school says 25. I'm going to ask Bill to do a report on his actual class enrollments because there are a significant number of high school classes that are under a dozen. And, that's the reality of it.
Yeah.
When we run a highly specialized program with a lot of electives and so forth, which is what people want, right? They want their students to experience that rich diversity of classes. Well, the result is small class sizes. So, and I've talked with our team just about the equity thing of we have, 6 or 8 kids in a course at the high school, and we have 24 kids in a class
At the middle
elementary.
school, in elementary
You know,
school, yeah.
so that's a real tension point that we have to work our way through.
Mhm.
But from our recommendation is that we consider revising the policy as written here. 1 through 4 is 20, 5 and 6 is 23, 7 through 12 is 25. And then if you agreed to that, we started to adjust the other numbers. The other feedback is whatever we do down here, when the majority of classes, so if it's 4, when 2 hit that, the third one would result in
Yeah.
the trigger, not waiting for the
Yeah.
fourth one.
Yep.
Yeah.
So our sense is that you can't trigger it when you go over by 1.
Right.
Right.
2 is like,
Yeah.
okay, you've bellied up to it. It's
Yep.
when you hit the third.
Mhm.
That would be the suggestion that we
It's a risk
modify.
you take that a couple kids move away. It is what it is. I like the idea of picking a date and having, who said minimum number? Brian, was that you?
I'm thinking,
I did.
I know we
actually.
keep going back and forth with this trigger number. Why don't we just change the trigger number to 21 and be done with it? So you can say at 21, if you get to 22 in any class, then you add a teacher.
For what class is that? All of them?
For grades
So
1
I'll start
through-
with just at the chart right now, 1 to 3. Because what Mike's saying is that once you have 3 students, then we add a teacher.
Mhm.
So I'm saying once you have 5 students, you add a teacher. No different than the policy is right now. But just change the number.
Five.
As soon as you go, so you make the policy 21.
Yeah,
As soon as one class hits 22, you add a teacher.
but that's what it is now. Is
But
that?
that's not how it's written.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And then there's no argument.
In first grade, Brian?
First grade, second grade, third grade,
What about fourth grade?
I don't know yet.
No, I think at the very least, I think first grade should be 20 kids. And if they go over by 1, that's 21 kids.
And that will be 15 and 16 kids in a class?
No, it'll be 20 or 21 kids. I mean,
Well, adding a teacher will bring it down to like 15 kids in a class.
okay, so is that where we want, I mean, I'm amenable to a minimum number of kids. Does that make sense though?
I don't know.
I agree with the recommendation from the admin team with respect to the trigger number. I think 1 shouldn't be enough to put us over.
Mhm.
2 classes, I think, we're starting to get there. 3, I think, is where you say, okay,
Yeah.
that's too many classes having too many students. And if
Why,
we,
why is 2 okay, but 3's not? They disperse it over 3 classes, so you're still talking 21 in a class, 21 in a class. Now all of a sudden you hit a third class of 21, it's too many? That's what I'm saying. If 21's okay in some classes, why not just make that number 21? And the first time that you hit 22, then you add a teacher.
I might agree with that if the number you're saying is 20.
That's where I am.
So if the number you're saying is 20, 20, 20, 20, and we hit 1 more,
No.
then, right.
No.
But you want all 4 classes to hit 21.
Just
before-
like now, but what I'm saying is as soon as
Right.
one class is 22, then you change.
Right.
Just changing the language?
But that's the current.
Yeah, that is
Right.
the current,
Right.
just saying it a different way.
Right.
Tara?
Well, to Brian's point, it says 20, but it's really 21.
Right.
Right.
So he's saying
I'm
just say
change it to
21
21.
and say that's the
That
number.
really reflects what it is now.
I mean, that's the way we've been running all along. We've run with 21 students if it came down to that in classes.
When was the last time we had 24 kids in a fourth grade classroom? Have we ever had 24?
Yeah, we did.
I have to pull that number.
I mean, it's right now. It would have been right now if we hadn't
Right.
added the 5th teacher. Here come Mike's tabs.
Can't even look at that. I can't even look at all your
All your
tabs.
Isn't it
I'm
great?
gonna block that up. No.
No,
Oh,
they
look at them
all
on the top. My eyes are crossing.
I think, and feel free to, I mean, I know you don't necessarily agree, Liz, but I think, saving money to build a new elementary school is what we're trying to do. I mean, we're actively looking for places where we can make reductions.
Mhm.
I just feel strongly that elementary school in particular is not the place to make those cuts. I think kids at that age benefit from a smaller number of students in the classroom. I think at middle school, I think generally kids are more independent. They can accomplish more. They need less supervision. But I think when we're talking about
I disagree.
grades,
I think middle schoolers need more supervision.
I mean, I'm thinking assignments and grading and things like that. I mean, I just, those early years are so important. And if those kids need intervention, if they need personalized learning, I mean, that's where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck is
That's why
elementary
we have
school.
24 paraprofessionals in that school.
When we can hire that many.
Yeah.
All right, we might have 20.
Right now, we're missing a lot.
I have half of one. Tara, do you have any thoughts?
Thank you. Yeah, I have a hard time changing these. I really do, especially I know what you're saying about the policy and the rounding and whatnot, but that is, and I think it's worthy of a discussion too. But for me, it's been something that we've been working with for a long time, and I do have a hard time changing that just because it's established, and I don't think it's one kid here or there. I guess I'm like I think we have to make sure that we're I don't know. It comes down to money to me in this respect. And I think that, we provide good experiences here, and, they're much lower than state totals. And I think that just people, we have to really watch our pennies. I want the new elementary school to go through. I really do. And I just think that the optics of this at this point in time, it's not a good thing. So, I understand the third and fourth, the GMS, that it's small, but we reduce the size of the class in fourth grade. And that if that becomes part of our argument, then once we get a new elementary school, there's going to be people arguing the other way to bring them back to bigger classes if we get bigger classrooms.
What if we make that? So I understand Dan's concern about having grades 1 through 4, just because it's that building, because it, to have everybody else have a target number and this one is, 4 kids more. Programmatically, I think it makes sense to keep it consistent. So what if we went to 21 for 1 through 4? That would satisfy your right. That would be a max of 21 per class. Does that make sense, or is that?
I think that benefits fourth grade, but I don't think that helps
First
grade.
Yeah.
And I think first grade might say, with transition from kindergarten into the classroom, and that's where the lower number needs to be more than fourth grade. But I'm sure arguments could be made for both.
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely understand the cost saving argument.
Right.
I really do see that as an issue. I mean, I think we're talking about 2 issues. There's one, whether we change the grades to match what's the recommendation 1 through 4, and then 5, 6, 7, 8. And then there's what's the trigger number discussion.
Right.
I
mean, your idea is kind of intriguing to me, actually, because, would be equalizing the numbers in the elementary level. And really, by using that 21, it's 1 student over the current policy, right? Because
over the target number, right?
The
So
target.
it would be a max of 21
at each grade. So in reality, it's kind of, I don't know. I think I just see it as equalizing versus reducing. I don't know. I think it's a net equalization rather than a
Makes
net
it more
reduction
even across-
overall.
Yeah,
You know what I
that's
mean?
kind of my thought is that it makes it even across the board.
Right.
And then, I think 5, 6, 7, 8. What do we have? What was their proposal for that? That was 23 for 5, 6, and then 25 for 7, 8.
In Bedford, it's 25 and 26. I just looked it up. Average size for the middle school.
What is it in Hudson?
I don't even know.
You looked up their policy?
I looked up their population as their Friday for October 1st population. Yeah. Their average middle school size is 25, 26, 25, 24. And it's 18 and 19 across the elementary school.
Mhm.
I've not looked in Hudson.
On average. I know at my elementary,
high
the
up
elementary
computer.
school where I work, they have some that are 18, some that are 22.
Just
it's a
to,
range.
I'm sorry. I cut
No,
you.
go ahead.
I'm looking at the numbers, and
Mhm.
so I'm saying, okay, so what would be the impact of the
Right.
21? It's really that class of 90 next year's first grade,
Mhm.
right? That you're then going to follow through because it goes 90, 91, 90 based on trends. So that's always going to be over your 20. So there's your 5
Mhm.
that's going to trickle. But I think it's there anyway, even
Right.
under the current policy. So it doesn't really shift it any.
Mhm.
And your fourth grade numbers, because you're looking at 84 as your new trigger, right? Because 421s would be 84.
So 85.
So 85 would be the new trigger.
Mhm.
And so looking at fourth grade, you'd be over it next year, but not in the 2 years after based on the prediction.
You'd be over it next year, but you wouldn't be if you don't change the policy. Why is fourth grade higher? I mean, I wasn't around when this policy was written, so it's going to be a reason behind why fourth grade is higher.
I'm not really sure.
I think they probably lowered third grade. I bet third grade was 21 or 22, and they left fourth grade alone.
There,
I mean, is fourth grade in other school districts generally higher?
So here's a gut reaction to it from an educational point of view. In third grade, you're working on foundational skills and especially foundational reading skills. And then, that's
Learning to read.
that's exactly when that,
Reading to learn versus learning to read, multiplication, subtraction, division, multiplication.
and my gut is that because that switch flips there, that
That's where it
the
all
sense
comes
is we can
together.
have a few more kids. They're more independent. They now can independently, pick up the book, read the directions and so forth. So my gut is that's what's behind it. Mary, do you think I'm
No, I think that's
swinging?
probably correct. I do think the thing that I gets lost in that is the increase in child growth.
Yeah.
I mean, just thinking back to I was this size in fifth grade, so nobody wanted me and crammed in their little.
Big
Are we
kids.
going to make the
Classroom.
fourth grade classes bigger in the new school?
You mean the physical
The
classroom?
physical box.
That's all still up for
Okay.
discussion. So
I
there's
didn't
so
know.
much. Well, you want to come on November 2nd, Liz, because there's a
I
lot
will.
of
I accepted your invitation.
but a lot of conversation about exactly what does
Yeah.
a modern future classroom look like. So
Mm-hmm.
if you have breakout groups and collaborative spaces, and you go into some of the newer elementary schools, and even the hallway is designed and utilized not just as a place to go from here to there, that then is empty the rest of the day. Once the kids have
Mhm.
moved, it's like that becomes learning space. So it's a whole different way of looking at
Not just the
designing
bad
a
kids.
school.
No, it's maximizing every inch of that building for learning. It's really
We're heating the hall, we're lighting the hall. I mean, think about that
Yeah.
lobby right now.
Mhm.
Right.
There's nothing going on out there. It's heated, it's lit, and that could be, a breakout session for us.
Back to the topic, Tina. I do like your I'm intrigued, as Tara said, by your suggestion.
I mean, I think that's such a big gap between it. For me, anyway, it seems like such a big gap between capping it at 20 and then capping the next one at 23 from third to fourth grade. I feel like if we can even it out, I don't know if that helps with the fluctuation year to year. I mean, every once in a while we're going to have a bubble year and we're going to need to add teachers, but it'd be great if we can just kind of be consistent and steady and not have to reassign people every single year. I don't know if that's a pipe dream.
Brian, what are you proposing for the language where it says strive for? Would you want it to say strive for, or are you saying?
No, I would take the word strive out of there and just what it is. But I
Okay.
still think, and I think what Dr. Jetty's saying about fourth grade is probably correct, and Mary's agreeing. And that's why I still think that fourth grade can be higher. So you could leave it at 23, but that'll be it. As soon as you get one class of 24, then you get a new teacher. So you change 1, 2, 3 to 21. As soon as you get one class of 22, you get a new teacher, and then you change the 4th to 23, and as soon as you get 24 in one class, you get a new teacher.
23 just still seems a lot seems like a lot of fourth graders.
A lot of what?
Fourth graders in a class to me. I mean, when I was in school, we had 30 kids in a class. So
27.
A lot of districts still do.
And we didn't even have walls. We had like bulletin boards
Yeah,
because
We
it
weren't
was the 70s.
differentiating at that point in time either.
we
too.
weren't. Everything was whole class.
We were also leveled.
You
Yeah.
you also had very different students
Right.
attending the
Yeah.
school. So
And
I
that's
mean,
kind of my other concern is the kinds of things that we're seeing nowadays. I think it's not just teaching and learning that's happening in the classroom, unfortunately. But that goes for all grades. It's the same across the board.
It seems to be, and this is just, I just grabbed a couple different schools. They're all over the place. Policies
Yeah.
are. Look at Bedford. It's kindergarten is 20 to 1 with a paraprofessional. 1 to 4 is 20 to 1. 5 to 8 is 25 to 1. It doesn't say anything above 8.
So it's a ratio to teachers?
Yeah,
Student
to teacher. And yet I look back at our Timberlane policy, and it was K1 won't exceed 20, 2 and 3 won't exceed 23, 4 and 5 won't exceed 26, and 6 through 12 won't exceed 30.
Did they have bigger classrooms than we have?
Depends on the building.
26 and 4th and 5th?
Depends on the building.
well,
So, and
but-
I was just grabbing a couple that I know their websites well enough that I could get them quickly.
and we had pulled that data. It was all over the map. The
Yeah.
state
It's
state data
everywhere.
is not helpful at all.
Right.
It hasn't
Right.
been updated since the 50s, I don't think. And then, but here's what it says on paper, but then what are you actually
Everybody.
doing? You know,
Mhm.
so if we then
Right.
went to the schools and said, how many students are there
Right.
in there? And
We
As I
did
was
do a-
reading this over last night, I was thinking, you know what? There's multiple criteria here for determining class size, but it seems to me that the only thing that we consider is number 5.
Yep.
And I wonder why the other ones are not. Like, how is there
Yeah,
not consideration
with
for
you.
those?
I agree. And that's where I feel like the admin feedback when we make these decisions comes in, right? So if Mr. Mitchell says, well, I really feel like I want to stick to this class size for this particular grade level, or any of the principals do that, I think that's taking into consideration all of these other factors. And, but
That's really hard though. And that, I mean,
Yeah.
I think, it really just makes me rethink this too, because I feel like as a board, really, we've all come down to what do the numbers say,
Tara, I wish I had 8 special ed students and I have 17 and I have half of a para. I wish a lot of things.
Right.
That's how I look at it.
Right.
yeah,
I
but
wish there were 2 of me.
But
I
it's
know,
also
but this
different.
is in the policy, and
Yeah.
how are we honoring the 1 through 4?
Well, we did the class minimum in the high school, which I think was a really good move.
I will say, I do think commitments the board has made to planning time, for example, right? So
Mhm.
our teachers have more planning time than teachers in some of the other schools. So when you're comparing those class size numbers, because it says here about required preparation and correction time for the class, I can tell you our teachers have more planning time. So that will help with some of it. So there are other board commitments that aren't explicit in the policy that are helpful.
What do you mean, like lunch duty and stuff like that, or just?
Well, so teachers in
Perk
other
time.
schools have lunch or
Yeah.
recess duty. Our teachers do not.
Mhm.
That hour of time in the day for common team planning, if done right, can be incredibly synergistic toward getting stuff done.
Right.
So it's like, I'm going to focus on pulling all the math stuff together and then share it with you. You focus on pulling all the ELA stuff together and share it with me. So, together we're collaborating in a way that really benefits everybody. And we have the time embedded for that. Not
And they have
everybody
another
does.
prep during specials.
Correct.
I also think looking at that, the reason that it comes down to the numbers is we don't have high turnover in
Oh.
our teaching staff.
Yeah.
If
That's
you
right.
had,
Wow.
if all of a sudden we had a team that was 4 brand new teachers,
Could happen.
the trigger number,
It definitely could happen.
know,
Yeah.
Right.
but that's usually not a consideration because our teachers, we have veteran teachers that have been here for a long
Mhm.
period of time. So
That's a good point.
But maybe there is some type of factor that needs to be taken into account and like attached to number 2, the experience of the teacher. Like what happens if you have a brand new teacher? Does that become a 0.9 factor where the numbers, the class is multiplied by
I think,
0.8 or
as much as we want it to be a cut and dry number, this is the policy, we stick to it. I think creating classes and deciding class sizes has so many factors. I think, if it's in our policy to consider those things, there are other things to consider too, like, the needs of each of the makeup of the kids in each class and what supports are available and what's not available. Have kids been identified? Are kids not yet identified?
I like that it's in our policy, but what I'm saying is I feel like when the rubber hits the road, when the principals have come in here, we as a board have, at least in my experience, have always come down on the numbers, the side of the numbers.
I agree.
And
I-
unfortunately,
That's the
now-
biggest factor, and that's what's going to hold the most amount of weight. That's why.
I disagree. I mean,
Well,
I have spoken in opposition to just leaving it up to the
like
numbers.
just
Yeah.
asking why we do that. You know what I mean? Like, because if we have a principal in front of us saying, that,
Well,
we
that's
have a
what Dan
number
was saying last year.
Last
He
year,
said,
yeah.
I know based on the trigger numbers, it says this, but here's what I want to do.
Mhm.
And ultimately we held to the trigger numbers.
exactly. That's
And
what I'm saying.
I think he was basing that, Mary, do you remember? Wasn't it in part on
COVID.
people being new to the team, right? Or was it
they had,
the 3rd grade had new?
I think it was somewhat the makeup of the
thought it was the
incoming
4th
classes
grade.
too.
yeah, it
Yeah.
had something to do with the makeup of the classes versus and there was newer staff on the 4th grade.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
but
I
he
do
did
think-
express those concerns, and we stuck with the numbers. And I don't want to be like, well, I didn't, but
Like
It
that's
has
what
to
I'm
be part
saying.
of the
Is there a
conversation.
metric that we can put in here that would help again justify that?
It's an opinion. I don't want
It's an
someone's an
opinion.
opinion saying, well, if there's 28% special education in this class, we need to add another teacher. I don't know how we could measure that. Do you know what I'm saying?
That would be harder, but I'm
Yeah.
feeling like the new teacher thing is probably the more of the bigger hurdle if they're using, if they're coming to
I
a new
think if we
school
don't
district.
trust our admins to give us the information that they have, and yes, it's an opinion, but he's the building administrator. He knows
But
what.
we have to report to the taxpayers.
I absolutely agree with you.
Which
that
is
we
why
do.
I
And that's
think
why
we've
these
always
numbers-
come down into the numbers.
But that's why these numbers have to be hard numbers. They can't be, flexible. Well, you know what? This teacher can use a little bit of extra help. Fine, then take 1 student or 3 students out of her class or his class and put them in the other classes.
Right, the newer teacher gets
Yeah.
the,
Fewer.
yeah.
And then if someone's identified, they're going to get a pair anyway.
Yeah, but then you're overloading that other class if we're right at the top. You know what I mean?
Are we in
You're
agreement that
taking care of
that
the weaker
that
one.
our concern is mostly with the elementary school grades? Are we good with the middle school and the high school numbers? Okay.
So you're comfortable leaving 6th grade lumped with 7 and 8?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
At 25.
Or 5. I'm okay with doing 5, 6, 7, 8.
But 5 and 6 are technically grammar school, and I think 7, 8 is middle school.
It depends on the school.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is left over from in our policies, but certainly as we look at the collective bargaining agreement, there's a lot of grade level mentions that seem to be based on old configurations when 5th grade was at the elementary
Yeah.
school, and it just
Yeah.
kind of carried over. So we're
Yeah, I
we're
feel like
having
this
dialogue
is-
about
right.
that, and I don't know how much 4, 5 when you read it, 4, 5 used to all be at Griffin.
Right.
Right.
So
So that
is that
makes
just a
sense.
carryover?
I think it
It
is.
sounds like it.
That being said, I do appreciate where the break is. I understand why you might want to have all the grade levels at the elementary school be the same for
Mhm.
uniformity's sake. But in terms of, from my experience as a parent, my kids struggled with the transition to third grade. I
Yeah.
think having that lower class size at the time, they went from, they went to letter grades. There was a lot more independent agenda planning. That third grade, I think, benefits from having that smaller class size rather than bumping
agree.
up with the fourth. And same with the fifth grade. I think that currently anyway, that transition from elementary school to middle school, having that smaller class size for that extra year benefits that fifth grade class as they adjust into the new school.
I agree with that.
So I'm okay with, I understand why, but I think I'm okay with the 1 to 3, 4 to 5 breakdown. I still struggle with what the trigger number should be, and should it require all 4 classes to be above the number before, and then another one before we're triggered. And that's where I struggle.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where my hang up is.
Have we had parents complain about class sizes ever?
Not to the
Not
board.
that I know of.
I don't know if they do to the admin team.
I remember going into the 4th grade with all the big bodies, and it was tight. I get it, but the teacher is phenomenal.
There's no doubt our teachers
Yeah.
are fantastic.
Mhm.
But, I mean,
So do we go to a maximum number? Like Brian, right? That's what you had suggested, Brian. We
I'm
max
saying
it
just
out at 21 and that's
Change
it.
the wording in it and put it at 21 for 1 through 3. And then as soon as you get a class of
I
22,
think that's clearer.
well, that way there's no arguments. Like,
Right.
well, we're just missing one. It's like,
Cut a kid in
I
half.
don't understand the argument that, if we hit 2 classes that are over, it's okay. But 3,
Yeah,
it's
I
like,
guess
oh,
that
no.
makes sense. I can see that too.
You just all you're doing is cleaning up the language. And what you're doing is actually going to be lowering it by 1 for 4th grade because you leave the number at 23.
Mhm.
So then, as it stands right now, you could have 3 classes of 24.
So do we want to say like shall not exceed?
I just put limiting class sizes at under 5.
Okay.
So take out the striving for and just put in
Yeah.
limiting class sizes at. And so are you suggesting that we change these to 19, 21?
I think kindergarten stays at 18.
You limit it at 18. So the minute one class has 19,
No, because you get 4 of the classes that won't have that, and we trigger them. We have to get another teacher. It's the same thing.
Well,
It's 19. It stays at 18. As soon as there's one class at 19, then you add a teacher.
what it does is it's going to align the wording and the numbers here to the trigger chart,
so if the
But-
policy is saying the same, essentially.
essentially.
Okay.
So this would become,
so one class of 19 is what you're saying triggers it?
Yep.
So leave the number.
No, he's
leave it?
saying all classes go to 19. So we limit it at 19, right? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay, so if one class hits 20,
Right.
that's
right. You've just,
Mm-hmm.
what have you actually
Yes.
done? Because the current way it's worded, this, by the way, I started modifying this chart and it drove me crazy.
Yeah, don't
Something
do that.
Right.
If we
I
just
don't-
have a
but-
limit, we don't need those numbers.
I mean, we're striving to get
Right.
18 in a class of kindergarten, but if you get 5 kindergarten classes and one of them has 19, now or 4 classes, one has 19, now we have to add a fifth teacher.
right. So I'm, again, just looking quick math, 18 times 4 is 72. So if we're looking at the enrollment, 74 would not trigger that fifth
Correct.
kindergarten teacher. It would have to be 77,
77, correct.
which is what the current trigger
Is that
number
what the
is.
chart says?
No, the
No.
current trigger number is 76 because it's 4.
Right.
So it's increasing the trigger by 1. Because the way this is currently written, am I doing my math right?
No, because if you get, right now, if you had 3 classes of 18 and 1 class of 19,
Mhm.
or if you had 1 class of 18, 3 classes of 19, we still wouldn't add a teacher.
Right. But right.
No,
No,
I think the
Because it
trigger
would be
number has to
72,
be 80
73,
because 80
74,
would be
75.
4 classes. It would be
Oh, so
one-
yes.
20 get one person, one class of 20, right?
76.
That's crazy.
Four
We would
times
now
nine.
allow that 4th class to have 21 without triggering. So you're actually increasing it to the trigger number would be 77. It's currently 76. Because it goes, you can get 3 classes
No,
over.
I'm like,
And on the
I can't wrap my head around it. I feel like it's the
Fingers for
same
that
thing.
I did have to
Okay.
use my
Oh,
fingers.
yeah, you're right,
You
77.
need more help in third grade.
Multiplication.
So
Yeah, I mean, it's,
So that goes to Mr. Mitchell's point of I have to have 4 classes be over all our strive for, which is the current language. I have to
Right.
have 4 classes be over all 4 and then 1
Now you set the number at 21 and one class goes over, you add a teacher.
for kindergarten though?
No,
No.
for kindergarten,
Okay.
we set it at
1 through 3.
fair.
Okay.
19.
So we keep talking 18s and 21s, but
Let's-
19s and
let's,
21.
so with the 18, it would be 19.
when they're
21.
all
when
at,
they're all, that's
And
the
that's essentially
maximum.
adopting the policy we already have right now.
Right.
It's just
With
making
clearer
it
language.
clearer.
Clear,
Yep.
yep.
and getting rid of that chart at the bottom because that's confusing in and of itself.
Yeah,
No, that just breaks out how many classes you have. And
I'm talking about this.
yeah, and just if you have 4 classes, 5 classes.
so are we okay with the maximum number of kindergartners in a class being 19?
They had 21 the year we didn't add
Oh.
a teacher. 21 and 22 the year we didn't add
That's
that
what it is
teacher.
now.
It's below 18 now. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
there's 5.
No, but the policy is
Yeah.
below 19.
Mhm.
So we'll change that to 19, change first, second, third to 21.
Yep.
Right?
And leave 4 and 5 at 23, but those are hard numbers that,
And those are the maximum
one,
number of
right.
kids you can have. That for 4 and 5?
but 4 and 5.
Okay.
okay, so I got 19, 21. Your next column is 4 and 5. You don't want 5 and 6.
Correct.
And so I have to
Right.
delete my changes to 4.
Was the 5, 6 feedback from LMS, from the middle school? Or
Mhm.
okay. I
Yes,
feel
it
like we're
was.
just ignoring all their feedback.
You are.
Why did we bother asking?
We're not ignoring it.
Well, we considered it, and then we're not
Yeah.
doing it.
And we're back to the numbers. we're Tara's point.
Right, right.
All right, so this is now,
It's not to say the principal can't come in here and argue their point as far as what their need is. I remember when Dan came in here, it was more that, he thought that the number was high and, he'd like another teacher.
so
Well, I'm sure every class size would like another teacher. So
5
the
is
class
going
is
to
small.
what,
But
24?
if I remember, he came in and said, I'd rather have third be high. And so I'm not asking for another teacher. I'm just
Doesn't.
saying we make the class sizes for third high in exchange to lowering fourth because I think the makeup of these classes
Mhm.
support that. And we still said no.
But I'm not sure if he was like really looking at that. It would then change third grade that it should trigger for another teacher.
Yeah, because I remember that you argued the 3rd grade should have the extra teacher because there are higher numbers in that, not the 4th
Right.
grade.
At the time, because 4th grade didn't have the numbers to warrant another teacher.
Right,
Right.
right. But again, we have to listen to our admins.
You do, but at the same time, you can't just still go away from your policy just because the admin would like another teacher. That's why we established this. So we do have guidelines
Mhm.
so that we're not adding, $100,000 to salaries like every year because the admin wants.
But we weren't. I mean, he was, okay. I don't think we need to belabor it anymore.
So what you would like me to do is to redraft IHB.
I'll make a motion to do that. I'll make a motion to redraft. What is it? IHB. So that we eliminate strive for, that wording will be that class size will not exceed. And then for kindergarten, it's 19, 1 through 3 is 21, 4, 5 is 23, 6, 7, 8 is 25, and high school is 25. That's my motion.
Okay, so 4 and 5 is 23, not 24.
Right. No,
Correct.
we keep it at 23, but that's the maximum.
So let's say when they're doing the schedule and one class has to go to 26, because I believe this
Someone
happened,
has
they'll
to
have to reschedule because that's exceeding the 23. Well,
No, this is,
I'll second. Just for
Okay.
discussion.
Now, what's your question?
nothing. Because sometimes they do exceed that number. Will we be able to tweak
but
that?
where?
No, in actual classes, I know there are classes that are a little bit higher because the way the schedule was set up
Where?
at LMS.
More than 25?
Shouldn't be.
Really?
We don't have that many kids at that.
So when you
school.
say class, you're talking like
One
one
class
course.
has like 14 and one has
Well-
26. But I think
well,
scheduling will
it's-
figure that out next year with the new scheduler.
Right, but the policy says band and chorus, large group instruction. So if it's a large group instruction class, they can exceed the policy. Right?
Are there any other classes that exceed that number
I don't
outside?
think so. I just heard about one.
So newbie question, we're revising this. We're not voting, we're just voting for him to revise it, but it'll come back again.
It'll come
Yes,
back
it
as a
will.
first
Okay.
reading. Yeah.
Because I would love to have people out there
Yeah,
give
definitely.
I know.
feedback.
definitely.
Weigh in, parents, if you feel strongly in any particular direction. I'd like to hear it.
One other piece
And
that
teachers and staff too.
And taxpayers who
Taxpayers.
don't have kids in
Everybody.
school.
Can I just
Everybody.
make one comment because I did pull it up earlier?
Mhm.
If you're putting that language in for the high school,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to be problematic because your
In high school, you can't really even set a number on you.
core, we have a lot of core classes that are running well over 25 people.
true.
Is are
I
they
think
That's
covered?
your like civics, your economics, the
Right.
mandated.
Is that covered in number 6?
I don't think so.
No.
I think the teachers would push back on that because that's not a large, it's a normal instructional class. So when you look at,
Or can we make that 5B high school? We will strive for classes of 25 and
No, I
then
think maybe the high school should just be minimum size. Because we have that, what we want as far as minimum students in the class. Or we just take it out of there altogether.
Well, the one thing about the class size not exceeding is what
Mm-hmm.
happens if the family moves in tomorrow.
Mhm.
And, somebody says, so here's the policy, we need
Right.
to hire a teacher. So we just have to be, if we're going to add a not exceeding, we also have to add some pressure release valve as
As
to
a-
when we
Yeah.
decide that.
As of
Because-
right.
the first day of school. I mean, you can't do anything if it's like you're halfway through a school year and all of a sudden, like you said, a family comes in and like changes the numbers, because that's happened.
So we
Or
could put
2 weeks
initial,
before when the
initial
board
class
makes the
sizes
decision.
not exceeding or something to that
Yeah.
effect.
But does that solve
it doesn't solve the high school
Varies.
issue.
No.
question?
Well, it does if we're firm on that, because what it means is they won't exceed 25. So we would have to add other sections. And you do that one.
And we'd have to add other sections by eliminating
Other classes.
other classes.
Classes.
Right.
So
I
the
don't
question is
think
whether or not
that's a
we
good idea.
just take the high school out of there.
Can we solicit feedback from
Yeah.
Mr. Lonigan on
Yeah. And,
what his suggestion is?
and we could add, to Tara's point, this could be 5, take high school out, add a 6 for high school and make the current number 6 number 7, which says, by the way,
Yeah.
you do have these other pieces. So that's another way to.
I would also love feedback from the principals in terms of
Mhm.
number 1 and number 2, the type of load that will help the teacher be most effective with the children in the class and the experience of the teacher and his or her familiarity with the district programs and policies. In the sense that, like, what happens if there are 2 new teachers out of 5 in a particular grade? Well, you know what? Probably if there was 1 new teacher, there could be adjustments between classes with the types of students that you have. But, I feel like if there's kind of an extenuating circumstance where there's a high degree of turnover or something like that, that maybe we can write something in the policy that the board will, if this is the case, that the principals should be bringing to the board, this factor
I think that type of,
for
think that's
due
subjective.
consideration, because I
Yeah.
truly don't feel when it comes to us, we are looking at the numbers and we're not looking at the one.
that's what
through
we're
four.
looking at, but it's one off, and that's where the
We're
principal
hiring
come in
professionals, and I would be insulted if they put more kids in another class than mine. We don't, I don't think that should be a concern.
Even for a new teacher?
Yes. I do. That's why they have mentors in the same grade.
Right.
Yeah, it's
And
for
that-
me.
it's not-
That's not necessarily true, though. They're
Yeah.
not necessarily in the same grade. They may be in the same subject area. They may be.
So that'd be like, let's say in third grade right now, you had 4 classes of 20. You got a new teacher. So because it's a new teacher, you want to make that class smaller. So now we had a 5th teacher. So what do you have, like 15 kids in
Oh,
a
no,
class?
I- No,
I'm
no.
not talking about one teacher that's new.
I think
Okay,
the
so two, so
admins,
you're gonna add
If it's undue,
right. I think the admins do a really good job of, at the elementary school level, at least, because it's mixed at the middle school and high school, but they place the kids with the teacher that will be most effective. And sometimes
Right.
a new kid comes in and they go, oh, this one is really a good fit for this teacher.
And the numbers aren't always equal like that.
Right. It's
Yeah.
not always a blanket,
Right.
everybody has the same. But I think having a maximum number of kids kind of, it clarifies this policy anyway. And
It does.
I do think there should be, if there are other circumstances that the board should know about, or, if there is an exemption from this, I don't know how to word it exactly.
Well, I think the
but-
board has that flexibility if, like, again, an admin comes to us.
Mhm. But do we need to include that in the policy? Do we say no? Okay.
well, I think I'll be definitely looking at this in a different way next year. But again, without, like, there's nothing tangible in 1 through 4, really. You know what I mean? Or 1 and 2 are the ones I feel like, if there's something metric wise that we could put in there that would help to demonstrate to the board that, you know what? This is outside the norm.
Yep.
And this needs extra consideration.
Right. But I think that's up to the admins to come to us and say that. And,
And I
then
hope
we
they
make a
would.
decision.
Mm.
Yeah.
Then we would decide as a board whether or not we agree with them.
So what is the proposal for the high school then? So do we want to?
I would leave it right now. I mean, that's my
Minimum
thought.
size?
Leave it right now because it's going to be brought back to us, have a chance to talk to Bill Larnigan
Mhm.
and see if, do we need to even leave it there or do we remove it?
And let me pull the objective look. So
Yeah.
let's answer the question, how many classes actually are over 25?
Mm.
And
Mm.
how many classes are
Yeah.
under 10, 12?
Mhm.
So that you can see that data and then
Yeah.
and so what would be the effect? And
Yeah, and just looking briefly, it's civics, it's economics, it's your
Core.
it's basically your core,
Over
your
25.
biologies, your chemistries. Yeah, it's your cores.
But I'd be interested in more than just this year's data. If you could pull like maybe a couple of years worth, 2 or 3.
Well, they used to be combined.
Yeah.
Right, but last year they
Yeah.
weren't. So you
No.
just pull last year and this year.
Last year was COVID. That doesn't count.
Yeah, it does. All the high school kids are in.
High school had the most kids.
Okay. All right. Are we all happy with this?
After we vote.
We're not voting tonight, right?
We're voting.
In a motion, we have a
Not
second.
sure.
To
Are those the most
revise.
up to date numbers?
Oh, okay. All in favor of
that's the last one I had.
Because I pulled it.
asking Mike to go back and revise the policy? All in
Aye.
favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500.
Who seconded that motion?
I did.
So the motion was to revise it. Do
Yeah.
you want more feedback?
Can
Because I
you,
think I'm going to get it.
could you incorporate, I know you will. Could you incorporate the feedback into either another document for us or into your revision?
Yep.
Thank you.
We'll do that. But I'll bring it back the way we've talked about. And then...
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Thank you for that.
Okay. Thank you. Do you have more comments?
Yes.
But we chopped that off the end of the
Exactly,
meeting, so we're
exactly.
good,
So we'll
guys.
just
We're
keep
good.
going.
Thanks,
So
guys.
the next thing I
told you
just
that
wanted to
too,
bring
didn't I?
forward, I just wanted to make sure the public knew that we have ratified our agreement with LSS. And then in looking at it with Michelle, the motion that we had made when we had it last time was to approve. And I just, it wasn't really to accept.
Yep.
And it wasn't really to ratify. So what I'd like to do is, now that we are in agreement and now that LSS has also ratified the agreement, so it now becomes a public record, it'll become part of our preparation for the warrant. So I'd like to kind of read the details in public and then have the board vote to ratify so that we have the
Okay.
exact wording on it, right? So remember that we had reviewed this back on September 1st after the parties had reached agreement. The first year cost of the agreement is $99,433. The second year cost is $98,202. and the third year cost is $91,822 for a total 3-year cost of $289,457. For salary breakdown, our custodians are planning to get a 0.5% cost of living adjustment added to the grid, and then each custodian would receive 1 step, which is equal to a 3% increase in each year of the agreement. Food service workers would also receive a 0.5% COLA added to the grid, with 1 step equal to 3% in each year of the agreement. For our paraprofessionals, the agreement changes the 3-tiered non-certified grid to base it up on one's education on one grid. So instead of having 6 lanes, we're going to end up with 3 lanes, and there would be no educational separation. In year 1, it's a 1.5% COLA added to the grid, plus 1 step equal to 3%. And in years 2 and 3, it's a 1% COLA added to the grid with 1 step equal to 3%. And our monitors we are creating a step schedule. It's a compressed step schedule, so it's based upon groups of 3 years of service to the district. So in total, there would be a 4-step schedule available to our monitors. They currently have no step schedule, so this will recognize some of the longevity and steps that they stay with us. Each year, there would be a 2% cost of living added to the grid, plus 1 step equal to 2%. So it's a slightly different structure. For administrative assistants, we are removing the distinction between an ADM1 and an ADM2, so that all of the administrative assistants are placed on the same level. And with that 2-tier grid, it would just include receptionists and athletic administrative assistants, with all other administrative assistants lumped together under the 1 track. Some other changes: there's now longevity added for monitors. There are 2 additional sick days added for the school year, so it's going to go from 5 to 7. Our staff that are working most closely with the children, in fact, have the least amount of sick days. So we did increase that, and we would increase the carryover each year from 15 to 20. The sick bank has changed from being mandatory to being voluntary, and the district will match donated days for those who choose to participate. There's a dollar cap on end-of-year funds for course reimbursement. We added language allowing other staff to help custodians if short-staffed. We added language allowing staff to help food service when short-staffed. We added language allowing professional development for food service and monitors if we have a remote instructional day. And we added language for staff to be paid at their regular rate if there has to be a bus monitor. Those last 4 items come from the COVID memo of agreement. They were things that worked really well as we were trying to keep our staff, and so they just became part of the collective bargaining agreement. So
That's
it
great that they
represented.
agreed to that part of it
Yeah,
too.
that's great.
Mhm.
Are they paid at their regular hourly rate if they help the custodians in food service, or are they paid at the food service custodian rate?
I have to get back to you on that. I can't remember
Okay.
that detail.
I
I
know,
Oh,
I'm
we
trying to
can
believe,
talk
remember.
about that.
I believe they're compensated at I think there's a sub rate that is
Oh,
what they earn.
Okay.
So it's neither. Because it's the custodial sub rate, which is not
Okay.
the custodian rate
Okay.
nor their rate.
That
So
helps out
it's
when we're
almost-
short staffed. My other question was under admin assistants. So it changed to 2 tiers. So 1 for the receptionists and athletic admin assistant,
Mhm.
and then all the others are the other tier.
All the others are the administrative assistant
Okay.
tier.
Okay.
No differentiation. It's
So the
just 1.
Right.
Not 2.
Historically, there had been one.
Admin 1.
then what's the 2 tier? It says we're changing to a 2-tier
There,
grid.
there were 3 tiers.
Oh,
There
okay.
was receptionist,
Yeah.
there was admin 1 and admin 2.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
we're
I
now
see.
going to have
So now it's
receptionist and
admin.
administrative assistant.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. That makes sense.
So that represents the changes that we have ratified. And as we begin our work on the warrant, we'll use those dollars to craft what that will look like. So
Great. I'll make a motion to ratify the agreement with the collective bargaining agreement with the LSSA.
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? 500.
Great job.
Yeah.
yeah,
Good job, team.
Thank you. I really do think this is going to help us to.
Thank you to LSSA
Although
as well.
I'll put
Mhm.
my plea in, we still are incredibly short-staffed. I
Yeah.
mean, we have our special ed director for the district is actually working in the preschool right now because we're short paraprofessionals in there, and you can't have 10 3-year-olds in with one adult. So Devin has been down there, and but she's not the only one. There's a
Right.
whole ton of somebody's doing this, a little bit of that. I mean, we're just not in a good staffing position, nor are schools across the state. This is not unique to Litchfield. Devin said today that there were 3 teachers at one of the schools in Manchester that resigned, just submitted and said, I'm not doing this anymore. And so, everybody's feeling the pinch. So I would say get their names and offer them para jobs, but we are not in a good spot relative to some of those pieces. So
Hopefully this will help.
let's hope. So municipal lease agreements. So we're going to have Diane Goro come to the next meeting. I was at the law conference on Monday. I attended a session relative to municipal lease agreements. Diane has experience helping districts to do this. Corey, Michelle, and I are going to draft. It's early on, but we're going to draft what we think a warrant article might look like relative to the middle school. And then we'll have Diane come and do a question and answer session. So she would be able to explain exactly what MLPs are, how they function, what the necessary steps are, how does the district get safeguarded with them, so that everybody, even in the public, has an opportunity to hear from Diane. And we can look at a, sort of a model prediction of what a warrant article could look like. I did say to Diane that we'll ask her to join remotely.
What are we leasing? Is it a lease agreement?
Yeah. So the basic framework of this is that you borrow money from a bank, and it can be used to purchase or to lease equipment. And so at the middle school, we're looking at it relative to leasing the HVAC equipment, leasing the solar panels for the roof, so that all of the work that we're doing, there are schools that have actually done MLPs for windows. We did not. We bought the windows. But, that could have been a lease scenario. Now, here's the pluses and minuses. The pluses are that the rates are actually really good. And you're able to, have that collateral. The negative on it is if you somehow defaulted on your loan, they come and take the window. It's like taking away your leased car, right? So you have to do it in a way that sort of guarantees that you'll be able to cover the payback on this. And Tara, really for simplicity.
And it's a fixed term versus the rental of the portables that we had rented for years and years.
Exactly.
Leased for years
It's a
and
lease
years.
purchase agreement. So
Okay.
at the end of the term,
So you know what your cost is.
Rather than
Okay.
keep paying like we did with the portables.
Okay.
And the other aspect of it is that, so how would we guarantee that? We would guarantee it through the cost savings that we're going to realize. So you take out the boilers and you no longer have the oil. You take the money that you're spending on oil, which is high, FYI, and you now say that's the money that's available to pay back the lease. You take energy savings because of the solar panels, and you take those electricity savings and you pay back the lease. I'm trying to think what else we have at LMS that's going to, the portables. We no longer have the portables. Those were part of our operating budget. We can utilize the funds there for the lease. So the warrant article could look something like, to enter into a municipal lease for the total sum of, I'm going to throw something out there, $2 million, $3 million, whatever it ends up being, with the first year costs being estimated at $100,000, of which it will be covered by the existing operating budget, because you literally are adopting, because if it fails, we still need oil next year. We still need a boiler. All that stuff is in the budget.
Right.
So you're just saying, instead of spending it on fossil fuels, we want to spend it in the following way. And I think it's really important that we have a good faith vote of the public to say, yes, go ahead and do this.
Right.
I don't want anyone to ever feel like we're pulling some kind of a sneaky here. What are you doing with this
Right.
equipment and whatever? It's like, no, clear and transparent. We're just taking the money you've already given us to run the schools to keep them comfortable and utilizing it in a different way. But we have to word it all right and educate correctly on
When
it.
it does go to warrant, I'm certain that Dick will provide us with
Yeah.
with some numbers as far as the
Yep.
potential savings and how long before the payback. Because I mean, the way he's talked, I know he's talked to a few of us, that, you know, that there's substantial savings, and after a certain period of time, it's going to be more or less like paid for it, and it will keep recouping money.
And this is why we're looking at things like incorporating in new LED lighting, because am I going to steal your thunder if I talk about exterior lighting, Brian? So, you know, an example.
Oh, he's
So-
not doing that report. I am. You can steal
Am I
my
stealing
thunder.
your
No,
thunder?
you go ahead.
I'm talking about speakers.
I want to
But
talk
just
about cameras.
a quick nutshell so that you understand what we can do, right?
Yeah.
So Campbell High School, all the lights on the outside, I'm talking all the parking lot lights and the lights stuck on the outside of the building, they're all old technology. They're 20-year-old sodium halide lights that use a lot of electricity, right?
They cost about $40 to $45 per bulb to run
Per month.
Oh my
Holy
God.
moly. Yeah.
So,
But then there aren't that many.
Sounds like my house.
That's why it's so dim out there, Liz.
so we
That's
asked
why it's so dim out
a
there.
company to come in and say, what would it cost to switch these out to energy efficient LED bulbs, which actually are brighter, by the way.
Yeah, I would think so,
Um,
yeah.
They say, well, and if you remember, you approved $20,000 to do this work last year,
Yep.
right? Okay, so they've come in, they've said it'll cost $22,000 to do this. So we were pretty close with
Mhm.
20. And then Dick talks to Eversource, and Eversource says we'll fund 85% of the project. So the
Yep.
taxpayers will get, well, it'll cost taxpayers $3,500 to do that, and the payback on that is 6 months.
4 months.
Well,
Oh,
one reason
I'm
like
adding
that.
in
That's
Dick's
fine.
fee
That's
of
one reason.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right, all right.
Yeah.
On top of that, they did the external audit at LMS as well. So they're going to provide us with a quote on that. So if we can get these external lighting projects done
That's amazing.
for under that $20,000 that we carried over,
Mhm.
it's just, and the savings it's going to generate is just phenomenal.
And then
smart.
utilize those savings in the project, right? So
Yeah.
now reinvest in the infrastructure by saying, okay, we've now saved all this money. So we'd like to utilize that toward the payback
Right.
on this municipal lease.
How
So
much I pay in electricity a year, probably.
It's a
And
lot.
let's not even talk about the safety factor behind it too.
Oh,
I mean, the
absolutely.
the lighting
Dim.
in both those schools
It's
is
horrible.
horrible. Yeah, that's terrible.
Yeah, it'll be improved.
Except LMS has got one like pole out there, like is nice and bright. So
Well, that
part
was
of the
thanks.
park-
That was thanks to Eddie Dalton
Yeah.
because he wiped
Nice.
that.
Oh, will you
pole
let
out.
us know when the new bulbs are in so we can do a drive-by?
Ooh.
Well, you'll see it.
My house will never be dark. I'm right between both of them.
You can tell the difference if you go drive to LMS, like the LED lights that were put in under the new canopy
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
the lights that were already there
Oh, yeah.
existing. It just they make them look so dull.
Yeah.
So it'll be a huge improvement.
So we'll bring Diane in because it is different. It's a different way of going at this. But we want to make sure that she understands it and that you understand it. And the other piece is the municipal lease can open up possibilities for whatever we end up doing with the elementary school. So would we want to do a municipal lease on a building? Probably not, right? That's a bond. You have to bond the cost of the walls and so forth. But when it comes to furnishing it, you could end up doing a municipal lease, which is a different payment structure. So, you'd have to tier the questions in the right way, but
Yeah, you bond for infrastructure and then you can municipal lease for equipping the building.
I think as long as it's transparent and we're not doing a shell game with, well, there's no tax impact the first year, but then every year after that, it's going to be this much. As long as we're
Yep.
upfront and clear about what it's going to impact in the long run, I
And
think
the
that's.
reason it comes across that way is when you're working through a municipal lease purchase and through a bond, the payments get deferred until the project
Yeah.
is complete because they don't know exactly the total amount of your municipal lease until it's done.
Right.
You'll get basically, I'm assuming, kind of like a line of credit,
Mhm.
and you go through and you do all the work you need to do, and then when it completes, then you start the payments. So you won't have a payment in year one necessarily,
Mhm.
but it's not a zero impact
Right.
in the long
Right.
term.
Yeah. I think the more education we can do on that, the better.
And the other piece too is Dick has reported to us the price of the solar panels continues to come down. So just even during the year that we've been discussing this, the technology has advanced and the cost has shifted. So it's all positive stuff for the work that we're doing. And then the one last thing from me, I cannot believe I just took all this time, but is the community forum on
Welcome,
November 2nd. So November 2nd is our night at Griffin. We have sent notices out. I updated our Twitter page today, so it's got new symbolism in it. And I sent a tweet out realizing that it was time to do something other than talk about the snow day last February. So I got that information out. But I think anything we can do to get this onto the Litchfield What's Up page, wherever people are looking,
Yeah.
this is for the entire community. This is an opportunity for our design team to share what they're doing and get feedback from the community so that we can incorporate that into the work going
Can
ahead.
we ask LCTV to create a slide? You know how they put the slides up like in between programming?
We absolutely can ask that.
That, just so that people who watch from home can, as they're flipping through the channels, they'll see
Yep.
community forum on November 2nd.
I will submit that. They have a new
Oh yeah.
email scheduling link, so we'll make sure they have that in.
Okay, thank
Yep.
you. And I did post on Facebook. I created an event and on the Litchfield School Board page, and it's been shared, I believe, on all the other pages. So
Awesome.
I created another one last Friday.
Hey,
and
great.
then I realized the day after, there's 2 up here now.
I
Sorry.
wasn't sure if you
Now
were.
I'm canceling mine. So if anybody got a cancellation, the cancellation is it's not canceled.
You can come to my
Just
event.
The second event is.
I would have seen this event.
Sorry.
That's all right.
All right, that's my report.
School board comments. Anyone?
I guess the one I'll just throw out there is just wishing well and congratulations to both girls and boys soccer, which looks like they both. I know the boys are going to be in the playoffs. Looks like the girls might also. And then football is doing well also,
Great.
and volleyball is too.
Okay. Anything else?
I just would like to let Kathy Schneider know I'm thinking about her.
Yeah.
And I
I
think
think we
the
all
whole
are.
school district is.
And I'd like to, CJ, a former student at Campbell High School, passed away. He has 2 brothers in our school system,
Oh gosh.
and our condolences go out to that family.
Thank
He
you.
was quite a character. I loved him.
What year did he graduate? Do you know?
I don't, when I was still there, so what year is it
Oh,
now?
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, take care and be well. Thank you. With that, we'll move to public minutes from October 6th. We'll make a motion to approve the public minutes from October 6th, 21.
I'll second.
Further discussion?
Yeah, just one thing in the minutes. Suzanne's name is spelled incorrectly. Her last name.
What page? Second page?
Yeah, I believe it starts page 2. She's in there several times.
Is she the charrette person?
She is.
It's GA, not GU.
All right.
Gar.
Okay, I'll make that.
All right. All in favor of approving the minutes from October 6th? Say aye.
I
Opposed? Abstain? 500. That brings us to Mary with our curriculum report. Sorry for the lengthy enrollment discussion.
No worries. No worries. So just a quick update on from kind of across the board. Professional learning, our Live to Learn this past summer was a huge success. We ended up, we had 22 different teachers that participated during our June days and 23 that participated during our August days. It ended up being roughly 35. I was trying to do the math this evening, but I couldn't. They're separate sheets and there was too much overlap. So it ended up being about 35 to 37 different teachers and staff members that participated during the course of the summer. So, great event. And I was leery going into the summer doing the 2 weeks, whether or not we would have the attendance, and we absolutely did. We had groups that came both weeks. So
That's
it's
great.
fantastic.
Mhm.
So it's got me fired up for next summer already.
In a good way.
In a good way. Just a quick, I'm going to go into some of this a little bit more in my presentation, but grading and reporting, I wanted to make sure that the public knew that our meeting notes, we do a generalized like action steps and progress towards them. That is now available on the district website under the curriculum tab so that they are pretty straightforward and easy to find.
Right.
And if there's ever questions on them, please feel free to reach out. Perk, we did have our first Perk meeting and we had 2 books that came forward. None of which need approval by the board because one was actually already an approved book that we're still trying to parse out. I finally found Julie's giant binder of Perk approvals. So I'm going to start trying to digitize that. So we do have a master
Is
list.
that Night by Elie Wiesel?
Yes.
Yes.
It's so
Yeah.
good.
It had been approved and used at the middle school, but the Lexile level is actually a little low, but the
The
content
content
is higher.
Yeah.
So when it was brought back to the committee felt unanimously that it would be a good one to reinstate, but it is already approved through Perk. The other one that came forward was the Hunger Games. There was a lot of questions raised about the inclusion of that in our, it was for the 11th grade curriculum, I believe. So there were some follow-up questions that we took back to the teacher. So it's going to come back to Perk next week. And I can just give you a heads up that there were 3 or 4 other books that have come across my desk since then. Our high school English department is really trying to put more contemporary pieces into the rotation, which is very exciting. So assessment and data, we finished Iready benchmarking. We just had our PSAT day. So we are on pace with everything we need to do there.
When are we Iready testing again so we can compare them?
That should be in like January, February.
Thanks.
So, and with that, Mike, can you bring
What
up
grades is Iready again?
We are using Iready for all students K through 8. And then we do have licenses to support our some of our students at the high school. Okay.
How long will it take for us to get the PSAT data? As a freshman parent, I have no idea.
I think it's
Spring.
It's
8
usually
weeks in my.
it's usually
6, 8.
by about Christmas time. I want to say that we have that data.
I was just curious.
But then they'll have the 8th grade report and then it will have the 9th grade. So they're having the same test Michael will have the 10th grade and next year so I actually found Tommy's the other day and it was growth, which was good to see.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. So, do you want me to plug in to drive this?
You just, I'm sorry, did I go the wrong spot? What did I do?
You're like at the end of the presentation. The end.
Don't ask me how that occurred. I just thought I was here.
You just heard Iready right
Allow
to
me
that
to
slide.
begin again,
Okay. All right.
and I won't
Oh, okay.
lean on it.
Okay.
I
Excellent.
think it was saved as at the last slide.
Yeah, 'cause
because
mine
when I
went to it
opened it,
too.
it's at the last slide.
Yeah,
So
it wasn't just you.
there you go.
But now we know how
Well,
it ends.
it's because we have a live link, and I was actually on that slide, and my cursor's on that slide. So sorry about that. I just wanted to take a minute. I thought about what to bring to the board this week, and thought we've got a lot going on. We have a lot that we are trying to get accomplished, and I thought it was a good time to just sort of look ahead at where we are, where we're going for this year, and looking a little bit beyond. I didn't go too far ahead, but. So I just added a slide because I'm in the wrong thing. Sorry. So looking at curriculum and our curriculum updates, ELA and social studies have been the big ones. Those were the ones that we were full force behind when COVID hit. So, and with last year being the year that it was, we made some progress, but did not get them done. We do have new competencies that are approved in both of those. It is my goal that starting in November, that we will start doing some, I'll start running some after school sessions to finish up those units. Middle school and high school are in a very good place with their unit rating. It's just cleanup. And elementary, it depends on the grade level right now. So I'm going to start running some after school sessions. And my goal will be to have the drafts to me to review by February. Again, that may be ambitious. So that may be a little more flexible, but they will be, it is my goal to have the ELA and social studies curriculum K-12 to the board for approval before the end of this year.
Great.
So moving on
The school
to
year,
the school year. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
The school year. Not,
not December.
no.
Just clarifying.
Yeah. The end of the
Yeah.
school year. So, moving on, looking ahead to some of our other priorities for revision. I know science is chomping at the bit to get going on their work. My intention was to actually parallel science with social studies and ELA, but looking at the amount of turnover that we've had in our science staff, I don't want to pressure, looking at our high school and middle school, I don't want to pressure those teachers more than they are coming in as new teachers for the year. So I want to put that kind of on pause until the summer and then really dig into it with Live to Learn this summer, along with PE health and computer science. Those are the two that are either pretty far along or have updated standards. So I think that we could get those almost ready to go before the start of the school year next year, if we can get some good summer work in, and maybe even in the spring, depending on schedules and whatnot. So that's just sort of those are my goals for that. Looking at professional development and instruction. So the PD committee did a survey of their buildings at my request over the last week, looking at what are the things that they still feel that they need support in, that they need training on, that they would like to see PD in, and with some other things, feedback on our last PD day. But I really wanted to focus on what their needs and wants were. So if you look at the slides, what you'll see, this is just a kind of condensed version of the feedback that we got. But the commonalities, when you look at the next three from GMS to LMS to CHS, it's differentiation, it's social emotional learning, it's project-based learning, and it's mindfulness. Those are the ones that we see over and over in multiple areas. You have other things that kind of cross into that, time being one of them, to work on either competency assessments, to work on developing best, advisory, those kinds of things that are common themes that we see and try and provide time when we can. But that really is, it's helped me to kind of target where we need to go. And when we meet as a professional development group next month, we'll be able to really plan it out a little bit more. So that brings me to the idea of collaborative culture. We talked about it a little bit this morning in directors. We were talking about it yesterday in the grading and reporting committee. I think we are making some great strides here. And one of my goals is to push a little bit more in some of these areas. So we've already got our PLCs. We had done training and really did some work around that pre-COVID. We're back up and committed to them this year. The Iready data has already been a big piece of that discussion at the middle school and high school. I mean, the elementary school and the middle school. The PSAT and SAT data I know was started, but they were looking at the high school. Last year, in looking at our PD days and our PD offerings, I made a shift from having it be led by me and led by Jason, when we were talking technology and things of that nature to really being more peer led, led by colleagues. And that was a huge success. We had some phenomenal workshops, especially in the area of different technology put on by our staff last year. My goal is to not only continue with that, but to build off of that. We have rock stars across this district, and there's no reason that we are going outside to have people share what they're doing. We need to be holding our own staff on that pedestal and let them show off their stuff. I know that makes people nervous, but the more we can encourage that, the better in my eyes. So,
Sorry.
it's okay. So my goal is also for this year to build capacity and desire to participate in more collegiate interactions, being things like peer observations, lesson studies, instructional rounds. That there's been some talk, and if you look at the survey feedback, there was a couple mentions of getting into other people's classrooms, doing peer observations, things of that nature. I really want to encourage us to do that more. Part of the discussion that we had at grading and reporting yesterday was, how do we hold one another accountable for the standards that we set for ourselves? And that has to come from building that kind of a culture that is like, come in and see what I'm doing. Oh, that was really cool. Can I watch you do that and bring it back to my own classroom? And, I think, we start some of that, but the last couple of years has really impacted that in a negative way. So, I don't want to.
Isn't that something similar what they should be doing during their collaborative time anyway? I mean, similar to that?
Well, that would be that collaboration on lesson planning, things of that nature. But it's hard to get in and necessarily see right.
See it in action.
So that's going to take some. It may have to be, because I don't think we always think about when the fourth grade has team time, they could be going into third grade.
Mhm.
It's not the same exact
Sure.
content, but the strategies and things of that nature. So it's just understanding how to build that in without making it be, well, I have to get a sub to cover my class because I want to go next door to see the other fourth grade class. And there's ways to do that so that it's not so impactful to the day-to-day in the classes. So I want to just start encouraging more and more of that and exploring ways with staff to make that a little bit more organic as well. So looking at assessment, this has been a real big focus for us since this summer. The idea of our competency-based assessments, we know we've had a lot of discussion around competency-based grading and what does that look like and what is it? And one of the things that has come up a little bit more organically was, well, how do we assess it? So we really have shifted the focus around the idea of what are those competency-based assessments? How do we score them? How do we build rubrics for them? So that was a huge focus for teachers that came in to do curriculum work during Live to Learn. It also was the focus of our PD day at the middle school and high school on last Friday, 2 Fridays ago on the 8th. The buildings the building leadership has created plans to take the work that was done on Friday and continues to be that they're continuing in their team time to review it, but the using it is the big piece. And that was, so on that day, as I was going around to different groups, I heard a lot of, well, we've already done this. And when I looked at the feedback, I got similar feedback. Well, I don't know why we had already done it. It's not a assessment that you make and stick in a drawer and maybe give once. I mean, these should be things that are in all of our units. It should be how we are assessing all the time. So really building that culture of constant application-based assessment is where we need to head and where we are working. We have plans at the building level to build it into the PLC and the team time. And I just put this district model building lead teacher created because some of the other feedback that I was seeing was, well, why didn't the district give us clearer directions? And I think we need to get people used to, like, we empowered the building leadership to run this, and they did a great job, but that's not been a common practice. So, we gave them the tools and empowered them to lead this work so that they can lead their teachers to create these assessments that are part of their building and part of their culture. So I just want to make sure you guys understand that's the intent. And I know it's my goal, and I know Mike's pushing me out of my comfort zone to give up a little control to really be the support behind letting them be the academic leaders with
Do you
this.
meet with the team leaders? Like there's a fourth grade team leader and there's an English kid. I forget what the words are.
So
Wouldn't they be in charge of their departments or their grades? Would they be your, instead of going to each and every teacher, they could report back to you? Is that how?
So I've started meeting with the curriculum facilitators at the high school.
Mhm.
We started last month. We have a monthly meeting. We had a training during our monthly meeting last month or at the beginning of October. So I'm trying to build that more into a regular thing. It has not been. It has not been part of how we do business. So I'm trying to add that in as just another layer of support. So yeah, as I said, it's the goal to have this just be what we do. Using rubrics, this is another piece that goes hand in hand with the assessment piece. We did start.
Sorry.
We did start
my
this
head.
work when we were looking at competency-based assessments.
I thought most of our teachers did this.
So this is where this next point gets in. It's a shift from content rubrics to competency rubrics.
Okay.
A lot of teachers use rubrics.
Yeah.
And because it's a nice and clean way to score.
Mm-hmm.
But a competency rubric gets at the application of the skill
Okay.
and not you used 4 vocabulary words in a sentence correctly. That's so we need to move away from the rubrics that get into the specifics and more into the application of that skill.
Got it.
So and what I'm trying to get them to do is sort of a combo. So it would be the standards, which are the application of the skill, but for the specific assessment, it's good to delineate what are you looking for to be that for the kids.
Oh yeah,
As
it
well.
answers its own question.
Correct. So that is a shift. So
Mhm.
it's not so much the idea of rubrics being a shift, it's the idea of that style of rubric being the shift. So it has raised some questions that we are starting to talk about more and more, and that is what's if you're going to a 1 to 4 rubric for assessment, what does that look like in Power School? It's not a clean transition. You're not going to give a kid that scores a 2 a 50%. Doesn't work that way. And where we live in both of these worlds, we do have some questions that need to be answered around that. So we're working on that. And then as we get to the bigger picture, we talked a lot about using, when we do competency-based grading, that ultimately you have to use your professional judgment. When you see a kid that maybe wasn't hitting the benchmark at the beginning, but during the course of the year they have, doing that average isn't really giving a clear picture. So building these rubrics is going to allow us to give our teachers another tool when they're not comfortable necessarily saying, like, they know that's what should be done, but now there's the rubric to back it up. So
The 1 to 4 equivalent, would that be like a 0 is no evidence, a 1 is in progress, like things like that? Is it
So-
instead of a number?
we're looking at shifting the summative assessments
Uh-huh.
to a 1 to 4.
Okay.
We're not yet at a point, and that's a bigger discussion with the board and the community and everything as to whether or not we go in that direction overall for grades. And I think some people are nervous that I'm trying to force that. That's not the case. It's just trying to use that 4-point rubric to get consistency in what the grade books look like, because I do know that there's a lot of concern when it's, this grade's a 5 out of 10, this one's a 95 out of 100, like that. And so if we can get all of those summatives on a
The
common
same
4-point
page. Yeah,
scale,
that would be helpful.
then it will be, hopefully.
You have to go to the next slide.
Okay.
Oh,
That's
side?
fine.
No, the monitor's going wacky.
Ah.
You're like Max
I'm
Head,
like-
you're like Max Headroom up there, just so you know. Oh, it's an
I don't help
old
it too
school
because I use
quote,
my
but
talk
it's
with my
like-
hands. So just a quick update in assessment on Iready. The GMS and LMS diagnostics have been complete. I've actually jumped in and looked at the usage since the diagnostics have been given, and we have not only a ton of our kids, especially at LMS, that are in doing the practice. We have a lot of teachers that are assigning not only the individualized practice but class level practice as well. So that was fantastic to see that, and that's been an uptick since we had the PD day. We had a training that week on how to sort of maneuver through that with the kids. And so I've seen even an uptick since that training.
But you already got the results. They're instant.
The results are instant. And so they are going to be coming out. We wanted to make sure that the teachers understood the data
absolutely.
and could
Yep.
explain it and
questions.
make sure that they were comfortable with it before the reports went home. But so far the feedback on it has been positive, and it's, I'm not hearing, even with NEWA doing it once a year, there was still the, oh God, we have to take the time to do this. And I haven't heard a whole lot of that. And it's been looking at some of the people that really have dove in with it and are really using it to support their kids. It's just fantastic. So I'm almost done. This is the big one. I swear. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. Grading. So I'm going to say this. It was really difficult for me last spring to have to come to the board and say that we were stuck. I don't like to have to admit those kind of things. But we were. That's the reality of the situation we were in. A little time off, a little summer break. I think, and I think Tara would say the same. I think we're back on track and making forward progress, which is huge. That's just so important that we don't get hung up again. So we've sort of narrowed down to a few goals, and I just wanted to highlight them here. Communication being one of them. So as I mentioned before, our goals, action steps, and progress notes are now on the district website. Anybody can see them. They're public documents. We are working on a pamphlet or a one-pager for parents around competency grading. What is it? How does it impact us at the different levels? And we were also discussing how to continue to get the messages out through other avenues, such as Facebook, Twitter, the principals' newsletters. But that's still kind of a work in progress in terms of how we want that to look. Again, specifically around the principal newsletters, because there's a lot in there. So
Yeah.
Is it one more thing to bog that down? And we don't want that to be the case. But at the same time, we want to make sure that we are using every avenue we have to.
Short and sweet. Short and sweet.
You check my notes. They're always short and sweet.
Yep.
So that really is a goal of that committee this year. And the other piece, the real big piece, is the consistency. So we have already done more work in the first two meetings, I think, on aligning our reassessment plans and procedures. It's at a point now where we've come up with our non-negotiables, and those are going back to the buildings to say, to get feedback on. The other piece that was sort of a sidetrack for us, but is a very important part of what we're doing. In my first year, we revised the work study practices and created those rubrics to be a more usable rubric. With the implementation of our portrait of a learner, what we're realizing is they're overlapping ideas, but in two completely different documents. And so if we are pushing and really wanting portrait of a learner to be what we say we live by as a district, we want that to be what we also use for work study. So right now we are looking at what does that language look like in the 3 buildings, so that it's taking that initial document that the board approved with the not only the traits but the like the definitions of what does that mean, and then just simplifying the language. So we did this actually with the whole staff in August, which resulted in a huge document that was so overwhelming that I had to bring it to the group yesterday and say, I don't know how we approach this, because it's got, everybody and their brother had commented on it, which is great. I want that kind of feedback on it. So what we decided to do is we're going to break up into subcommittees for our next meeting, and each subcommittee is going to sort of tackle one of the 4 traits. So we'll have membership from each of the 3 buildings.
And then this is something that will be sent out as a report to parents. So, I mean, traditionally we have a report card that goes out once the quarter closes, and
Right.
we report to parents on their grades and their work
study.
practices.
So
yeah.
looking ahead,
Mhm.
and this may not actually, ideally we might be able to get this in place for the mid-year, but realistically it may not
It's a
be
lot of
until
work.
next year, is to have that replace the work study practices.
Okay.
Because they're 2 of the same thing.
Mhm.
And I don't want it to become, well, I have to score on this,
Right.
but how is this different than this? And so we the problem was, by the time we sort of did some of this preliminary work in the summer, we didn't have grading and reporting to be able to say, do we want to move forward with this?
Right.
But when we brought that back to the committee in September and said, look, we have this, do we want to merge them into one thing? It was unanimous that yes, they did. They didn't
Okay.
want those 2 documents because
It's
neither one
cumbersome.
would get the focus and the attention that they need.
Okay.
So one of the other things that has been a point of discussion are the idea of the building-based practices. How many summative assessments per semester? How many formatives do we all have to enter our formatives? How many, what does a summative look like in that building? We've started the conversation and identified that we need to have more consistency within the buildings. And my stance on this really is we've outlined the expectations, but what that looks like in all 3 buildings is going to be slightly different. What a summative looks like at GMS is going to look different than what a summative looks like at CHS. So there are building-based pieces that the principals and those building teams have sort of been charged with. We're going to start these discussions so that we can really get that consistency that we've all been looking for. So that is work in progress, and that is the end for me, I think.
It is.
It's my last slide. Okay.
We saw it coming.
Mary.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you, Mary.
So any questions?
I'm really excited about the parent communication piece and the educating the parents on what we're doing and the progress that we're making and what it all means.
And part of that too, again, we're just trying to figure out the logistics around it. But part of what we hope to do is get like a parent night in each building to kind of talk about it, and whether it's like the coffee with the principal kind of thing, and but so that we have the buildings there to say this is what we're doing. So I just want to make sure that we have a little bit more of a foundation in terms of some of these unanswered questions, just those little consistency pieces before we.
I was really encouraged with the relearning piece, how there were several non-negotiables that were common threads throughout
Yeah.
each of the schools. And I think that was the first time we had seen that.
Yes.
So-
Yes. I had them do it individually. So it wasn't like a whole group activity where I had the buildings do it individually. Whereas I think in the past when we've done it, we sort of worked off of the old one or the draft one from when I came on board. And it was like, yeah, we know we need to do this. And yeah, we know we need to do that. But it doesn't fit the needs of the building necessarily. So we, I had them look
They've
at it.
looked at it a few times too, and they've had more time to think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Good.
So
Good.
it definitely has been very uplifting to see that
Good.
we're starting to get some traction and moving in the right
Good.
direction.
I'm sure it's a lot easier now that teachers are teaching the kids in front of them and not doing double duty. And
Right.
yeah. Well, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Pleasure. Welcome back.
Yeah.
It's good to be back.
Bye.
That brings us to the BA report.
So I provided my written report last week, giving some updates on what the budget looks like. Since then, some things that I had noted as pending have now been adjusted. So the
Wait.
unemployment,
I'm sorry. Did you know the date on this was September 10th? Was that just an old?
I copy the document.
Okay, good.
I should have.
I was like, did I miss something? Okay.
Yeah, I should have changed that date.
All right. No
To
worries.
10/15.
Okay, thanks.
But the information on it's good.
Good. Okay. Excellent.
I'll make sure I check that next time.
Cool.
So we did receive the estimates for unemployment workers' comp, so those have been adjusted accordingly. We also heard from school care that gave us a baseline for health insurance rates at a 10% increase. I anticipate that to come down a bit. They did say they think between 5 and 6.5% is probably right, the range we're going to be in. But
like 1% last year or something.
We've had
tiny.
holidays. We've had no increase for
Yeah.
a couple of years
So
now.
Yeah,
so
right.
those
that's
things
a bite
all
us.
Catch up.
Mhm.
catch
Yeah.
up as
Yeah.
you actually implement the budget. Those holidays will come into place. But
Yeah.
for now, they've told us to go with 10% as the baseline, so that's in there and reflected in the budget. So now instead of the numbers that are listed here, the general fund increase is now 441,000. So that comes in at just under 2%. And that's in the payroll and benefits. The increase is 2.73%. Operations did go down slightly, just under 1% decrease in the operational side of the budget. Food services come down. The grants fund or special revenue fund, we budget as a placeholder of 575,000. We don't know exactly where those amounts are going to come in until the grants are processed and approved. So based on that, by the end of next week, we also do have, me and Mike still have to meet with Holly regarding the salaries and benefits budget. We have not had the opportunity to do that yet. So we'll see if we can make any adjustments within that budget as we review it. So the requested budget will be provided to the school board next Friday, October 29th,
In paper.
in paper.
Thank
We'll
you.
have hard copies for you and digital copies for you.
Thank you.
And then November 2nd, we'll provide to the budget committee ahead of our meetings with them, which begin on November 4th and 8th, which are the joint work sessions. So they'll be in attendance.
Did you say the 29th is when we'll get ours?
Yeah, next Friday.
Oh, I even have it. I was looking at my calendar. Oh, budget due to school board.
And then we did link
You're not gonna be
the
doing that weekend.
we did link the calendar for when the meetings will be, but November 18th will be the first meeting with the budget committee. And then we have a break for Thanksgiving, and then we'll meet on 3 Thursdays in December. And then the last meeting being on January 6th, which I believe is final voting. And then January 13th is the budget hearing. We wanted to bring to the board attention one of our sources of revenue, which is federal Medicaid reimbursement for special ed. Over the past couple of years, they changed the requirements for filing for that, where you need to actually have a licensed provider sign off on the things that are submitted for reimbursement.
Instead of paras.
The paras can develop all the information and submit it, but it has to be signed off by a physician or a nurse before it is submitted to the state, just verifying the information. So this has become a tedious process
Really?
for our teachers for revenue that we've seen drop by almost 90% over the past 4 years.
Is that
So-
because they've complicated the process, or is it?
They've made it they've added layers
The
of red tape that
student's
just make it.
physician or nurse. So it's a third party. It's not like we can use one
Yeah,
of
so
our
we-
nurse.
We would have to either contract with a service to have a medical provider sign off on the documentation
That is a
or
good
hire
question.
somebody
Holy
to
moly.
do that work for us. So it's essentially become cost prohibitive to even really submit for this revenue.
Which is unbelievable because our special ed population has gone up and reimbursement's gone down $115,000 because a para could just type in things. And when you went to speech or you went to OT, those were billable hours.
Subtracted.
And now I guess they don't trust anybody, so they have to add all these new layers. Wow.
Yeah, so with all the fees taken into account and the fact that we would have to have a contracted service to sign off or an additional employee, for the amount of money that we're getting back, it's really not worth the time to even submit for it. Where we're short on paras.
Yeah.
Um,
But are we not, I guess my question is, are we not getting reimbursed because we're not submitting? Because it's so difficult now? Or are we not getting reimbursed because they're not reimbursing anything anymore? You know what I mean? Like,
So
we
we're not
submit what we
submitting.
can.
We submit what we can, but they changed the law that it had to be signed off by a
Right.
person with a degree in that particular area as well.
and there's so
a
many areas
license-
that receive
Right.
reimbursement.
But an
I see.
OT couldn't sign off on OT hours?
They have to be a licensed, like,
Speech pathologist.
And,
Wow.
and I think it actually,
It's gonna
even
hurt
the
all the
OT
small
can't sign
school
off.
districts.
You need a medical person who says it's required OT medically. It's not
Oh
just,
my goodness.
it's not
It's
educational
crazy.
OT, it's medical because it's Medicaid. So these are all the complicating factors that
Okay.
have layered on.
You're right, Tara. That is going to hurt a lot of small districts
Mhm.
like us.
We're small.
Mm.
I know it has. That's been
Mhm.
that change was made in FY19. It was
Yeah.
just a couple years ago.
Wow.
Answer my questions.
The other piece is that MSB, who is sort of the third party agent that does the billing.
Yep.
Well, they take a cut of it. So they get
Mhm.
10% of the funds that are recovered. So, if
Oh,
you're looking at $15,000, $1,500 is going for them to do the administrative piece. Then you boil it down to, you're paying a provider to provide the medical stuff. Well, that's coming out of what gets recovered. So if it costs $60 to receive the statement and you recover $120 in the service, half of it's going to the medical person who signed off on it. So it's become really complicated.
So what do? We just kiss that goodbye?
Our recommendation is that we stop doing it and we just do our jobs and not be in the process of medical billing, which is sort of where we put for the amount of money especially when we're down the number of pairs and
Right.
so forth, that we're almost better off just servicing kids and not chasing after minutia revenue. I mean, when it was $140,000, it was worth without all the extra documentation. That was direct revenue to the district. It no longer is.
So does that increase our bottom line then? Like, is our special ed budget or, because we're not getting that offsetting revenue, is it?
No, it keeps our staff that we do have working to service the students rather than trying
Rather
to
than
compile
doing paperwork.
to get this
Okay.
minimal revenue.
Which makes sense. I think
Yep.
that's, all right, I understand.
Has this come up at all with an HSBA? Is this something that's worth trying to lobby for a change? Is this happening in multiple states? I mean, is this like
It's,
federal issues?
um,
It sounds like.
It has come up at our
Yeah.
level. It's federal changes that did the trickle down, and it totally coincides. I mean, nursing homes, for example, in the fall of 19, there were massive changes in the way they staffed because of the changes in Medicaid billing. So it's
Just wasn't sure if it was worth bringing up to
Right.
For-
any of our representatives, not necessarily state, but federal,
Yeah.
to try and get some changes that make it more accessible.
For FY20, when we went through the budget process, the state had pretty much told us budget for $1 in
Oh.
Medicaid revenue because
Wow.
Mm.
they were in the process of changing everything.
Mhm.
And We ended up getting 22 out of it, but still just a huge reduction.
Mhm.
And to be spending staff time to do this for minimal
Yeah.
minimal returns.
Well, and to be clear, we ended up getting 22 coming in,
Yep.
but then we had to pay out of that 22 for the people who helped us to get the 22. So it's not even $22,000 not raised at the local tax level. It might be $15,000 by the time you're done with all the other stuff.
That's
And,
unfortunate.
so our
So-
sense is with limited staff that we just stop the madness. And
Staff working with students is the priority. So when you put it that
We
way,
keep an
makes
eye on
sense.
it, and if down the road things change and we have the ability to reinstate it, then we can look at that. But for now, it's just not a feasible thing to chase. As of today,
can I just, do you want to take action on that as a board to direct us to stop? Or do you feel comfortable with us just explaining we want to stop? Because I'm just picturing, I mean, there is a revenue decrease, right?
Mhm.
The feds have cropped it in a way, but it hasn't gone to zero. There still is some money here. But, when you divide it by 180 school days, we're doing a lot of work to get $86 back a day, right? Because that's what it comes out to. And that doesn't even include summer programming for some students who might be. So just to put it in perspective, it's a lot of work to try to recover a very minimal amount of.
And what's the
revenue.
hourly? I mean, that's how much are we actually taking
that-
away time away from kids
Right.
to get that initial paperwork filed?
And that is spread over, that $86 a day is spread over all of our,
Yeah,
whoever we're billing for.
I mean,
So-
$15,000
Mhm.
comes out to $86 a day over 180-day school day.
But that doesn't include cost.
And then you deduct the cost to get the $86
Right.
out of the $86. Yeah, so I'm just trying to give some perspective,
Yeah.
but I'm comfortable with us just shifting the way we work. I think we still leave $1 in the revenue line,
Yeah.
but if the board thinks directing us is a better way to proceed.
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to what was that? Suspend
Put a pause,
for
yeah.
21, 22
Refocus.
seeking Medicaid reimbursement.
Is there a second?
A second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
With $1 in there, we can always revisit it next year.
And I love the word suspension because we're not change, we'll go back at it. But for right now, it's just.
I can't believe fighting that, especially nursing homes and stuff like that. That's huge.
That is huge.
well, nursing homes would probably have the staff to certify,
Right.
Yes.
A lot of them had to change staffing from.
Yeah.
probably.
500. Thank you.
Quick middle school update. We're expecting schematic design and hopefully a pricing set over the next 2 weeks to a month. So we can work towards the,
Schematic design?
Not complete.
Okay.
so that work is ongoing. North Branch and Academy Roofing was set to start the roof installation today. I went down by today. I didn't see anything going on, but that could have been behind the building. I saw staff out with kids and I didn't want to drive through a bunch of people. So we'll keep an eye on that as they work their way through that. I put some year-to-date information regarding financials. I'm going to bring a full set of financials to the November meeting. There was some delay at the state with the food service application to receive federal reimbursement. We're just waiting on approval of want to bring in. So I'll share that file over as well, so you can take a view. Take a look at that.
Corey, would you do me a favor and update your report and send it to me to share with the budget committee with the comments that you made? So like the changes that you told us
Yep.
about, if you could just plug those in.
I will get that over to you tomorrow morning.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We have a meeting tomorrow night.
And
And
unless
the
you have
date.
any, huh?
And the date.
Yeah, change the date. right, any other questions for Corey?
Actually, I have a question on one of the manifest. I don't know what the item is. Something from Amazon that was purchased, some boot. It's one of the skinny ones.
Oh, let me
It's
get on
like a
that.
covering for,
A what?
I don't know.
A boot?
It might have been a yellow one.
And
Maybe.
it was cheap. It
It
It's
was
just like-
cheap. How much was it?
was like
20
less than
bucks.
20 bucks.
No, it's
Yeah,
not the
yeah.
yellow one then.
Try the blue one, Liz.
It's only one invoice in the folder.
Let's
The
stop everything.
suspense. All right, while they're looking, I did have another, and I'm going to phrase it generally. The salaries that are listed on there,
Someone looks
Did
like they got about
those-
4 weeks worth of pay.
do those
Can you point
include
out to me?
co-curriculars?
Well, we can do it in
as
non-public
well?
because it
Yeah,
has to
we'll
do with a
it.
person.
Oh,
Let me
okay.
I'll grab the payroll man.
Okay.
I'm curious about the boot.
Okay, it's one of the skinny ones. Only has one invoice.
Find the boot, Corey, find the boot.
Is that it? The green one?
Boot slips.
Oh, the green.
Skinny one. 28.98. Is that what you're talking
I thought it
about?
was $19.99 or
I
something.
know. I thought it was less than 20 bucks.
Well, shipping.
Windy.
Just go give us all back to him. You can
Yeah.
find it.
Yeah.
Amazon order.
Where do you order it from?
Amazon.
Non-slip boots.
What is
it's for non-slip.
Yeah.
Food service.
Are they
What is it?
booties? They put on their
They
shoes?
put them on over their shoes.
Yeah, you said non-slip.
Non-slip.
Smart idea.
There you go.
Taking care of our employees.
All right.
No slips, trips, or falls on this
Nope.
watch.
All right, that brings us to a big chunk of our agenda called committee reports. I'm going to go down the list.
Yeah, we just kept the list on there.
See that?
I can look at the
Um,
detail.
More than
Budget committee did meet last week. We reviewed the
That's good
second
enough.
half of the town budget. And I did not give a school board report in the interest of time. So this tomorrow evening, they'll begin voting on the town budget. And then we're up on November 4th. So that's the general gist of the budget committee.
Tina,
Yes.
it'd be helpful to remind the budget committee that the purpose of the joint session
Yeah.
is so that we don't represent. They can
Right.
hear all the presentations from the department heads and directors. So
Yeah.
And they will have their own physical copies to
They-
follow along with
they,
us.
they will have paper copies provided to them on November 2nd, I think it is. And then they'll be able to follow along with that.
I will remind them. And that brings us to Facilities Improvement Committee, which is my other committee that I attended.
Sorry.
Yes,
Where are we holding those meetings?
CHS Auditorium,
That
CHS Auditorium.
that was the goal. So sort of like what we did last year, have it back
Right.
in the auditorium. Of course, we're not socially distanced in exactly the same way, but we'll be down
To be
front.
quarantined last time. I got up and left. I remember.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Why
right.
wouldn't we do it here? Out of curiosity.
We certainly could.
We have all the directors to present.
It's really at the pleasure of the board. I mean, this
Yeah.
room, now that we're back in here, and with restrictions lifted, so it would be us. Is there still a capacity in this room? Or
30.
they increased it. So the budget committee could join us here and it would be probably easier for LCTV. So,
Okay,
I think this room is more conducive for that type of presentation and meeting anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I hate the auditorium.
But
We'd
you
have
wanna
to see,
do-
we'd have to see if
Yeah.
we
there's
can
a,
make that shift.
No, I think that was the problem. I think Monday night, I know the Monday night is the Board of Selectmen.
Selectmen, yeah.
And then that Thursday,
How about the fire department then?
4th is just the budget committee meeting. So, yeah.
CHS Library?
Let us look at, we'll let you know. It doesn't have to be, it's a really good point. It doesn't have to be in the
Yeah.
auditorium.
I think the big concern was the conflict on the Monday night because that's the Board of Selectmen meeting.
And then we can go to the fire
The
department.
conservation
What they could do is
committee, do they meet? I know they meet on Thursdays. but-
Well, budget committee meets on Thursdays.
I know, they usually, conservation ends up in the other room. So budgets committee's not meeting on the 4th, so that would have been.
Well, they're meeting with
Right.
us.
They're meeting with
Yeah.
us.
So Brian, your comment, I know the auditorium is not conducive to that kind of presentation. I mean, would you rather if we did the library, for example, is that a better setting than
Mhm.
the auditorium. So if we can't get this space for something a little
Yeah.
bit more intimate than a big
Yeah,
empty.
as long as we can
odd.
record and broadcast.
I think the
If we can't
acoustics would be
broadcast
better
them.
in the library too.
Yeah.
The acoustics for the last meeting we had in the
So I will-
auditorium was tough.
And same thing, if we can't broadcast live, we can just put it on YouTube after.
Right. Okay. So proposing a venue change to here for this Thursday night and CHS library, or CHS library for both. Will you let me know what you find out?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll check it tomorrow morning and let the
All right.
board know what's available.
Okay. And then I'll let the budget committee know.
You.
And that's,
I know.
and that is 6:30 PM, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Anything else for budget committee? Can I answer any other questions? No? Facilities improvement, we had a meeting. What day is it? Wednesday? We met last week on Tuesday. We had a pretty lengthy agenda. Most of it was regarding the phase 2 upgrades that we proposed at LMS. So we looked at a schematic design for phase 2, which includes the LMS kitchen renovation, moving the walk-in cooler and freezer out of the kitchen, so we can benefit from some more prep space. We talked about reconfiguring the locker rooms at LMS because they're not used. It's actually quite a large space that isn't being utilized. So the schematics show basically kind of shrinking them down, removing all but one shower, one toilet, and using the space that we gain from that for support rooms for special ed. So it would gain us, I think, 900 square feet in one location and 500 square feet. It would relocate the PE teacher's office, and would gain those extra kind of support rooms for the building, which I think makes a lot of sense. Phase 2 also includes new mechanicals for the HVAC system upgrade, and those would go kind of, in the gym where there's that low overhang over the bleachers. Right now, that stores a bunch of equipment for heating and cooling. That would be moved out of that space into onto the roof. There's one section of the roof of the gym that's higher, and then the section that's lower, so it would be kind of here, and that would allow for easier access. There'd be a stairwell coming down into the storage room of the gym, so it would be easier access to maintain and repair that equipment for heating and cooling for the HVAC.
Are we talking about LMS?
At LMS, yeah. This is all at LMS. Phase 2 also includes the solar panels on the roof of LMS. We're looking at 500 panels of solar. It's a huge flat roof. The roof that they're installing now is a white membrane, and the solar racks would just sit on top. They don't get bolted down they don't perforate the membrane at all, and they actually help protect it. And because the membrane is white, it reflects the light, and the solar panels that Dick Henry has found
Bifacial.
they're bifacial, so they work both ways. So you get the direct sunlight and the sunlight bouncing off the roof onto the back of the panel. So that just increases the efficiency. They're looking at, he was talking about a 12-year payback by the electricity that we would generate, and potentially sell back to the grid with a 40-year lifespan on the solar panels themselves. So that it would be all the electrical, and basically net positive for the school. And we talked about rebates for the upcoming projects. Dr. Jetty mentioned the LED lighting. Eversource has a number of grants that if we can complete these projects, we can recoup some of the costs.
If and actually bolted down, is wind an issue?
No, because they're only tipped at a 10-degree angle. So they're not like this, which
Okay.
would, so wind would be an issue,
Okay.
but they're only tipped, I think he said a 10-degree angle, right?
It's fairly low.
It's
And
fairly low, and they're very heavy, so they weight themselves down.
and they're,
And they're sound. Yeah,
they're
that's right.
ballasted with sand. So there's no roof penetration. That's the key thing, right? They're
Right.
just sitting on top of the
Yeah.
roof, and it doesn't void the warranty or cause any
yeah.
problems like that.
Yeah,
So
so that's the benefit of that. What else? We talked about the air source heat pumps instead of using the big boilers and all the ducting that's in there now. It would basically be there. I think he said there were 3 different kinds of vents that we would use. So one would be, it vents to the outside, and as the air comes in from outside, it's warmed up with exhaust air that's going out from inside. And it just keeps refreshing the air that's inside. It warms it, and then it sends the warm air outside. It uses it to heat the cold air that's coming in. There might be some outside units, and then a classroom unit with just a fan that just kind of blows over a heated coil. So there are different kinds of mechanical units that we'd be using depending on the location in the school. I took a lot of notes. Talked about water usage at each of the 3 schools, which was very interesting and very surprising.
Especially since there are no showers being used.
And no bubblers.
What?
And
No bubblers.
Right.
Yeah.
How come we're
It
not
was
using bubblers out of curiosity?
say again.
Why do we not use bubblers?
Because of COVID,
How do you get COVID from using a bubbler? I'm
Kids
just
lick
curious.
them.
I've always,
they're called fountains.
yeah.
I saw a kid do this on a feeder today, one of the bottle filler upper things.
Are they still closed, Corey?
Yes.
Yes.
Let
We
us.
have the filling stations.
The
Yeah.
filling
The
stations
filling
are open.
stations are open.
Those are open.
Yeah.
But the
We should examine, because I think we shut them all last year when we also thought surfaces were
Mhm.
bad. And let us examine the new practice and see what does the CDC say about water bubblers?
They call them fountains. Or maybe we call them bubblers up
I
here.
think it would be helpful and a nice thing to do if we just had the refilling stations instead of the water fountains.
it would be, but we don't. We have bubblers. So
No, I know, but
well, if we can
Right.
use them.
they can be replaced. Anyway, so we actually found out that GMS uses the most water out of all 3 schools, which is kind of weird when you consider
Maybe they don't
irrigation
shut off the
is.
I was going to say,
Is
did
off
the
the
kids
well.
leave water
Six
running?
on?
Yeah.
Flush toilets.
but that also begs the question, is something leaking? What's going on? It's a
Right.
big, it's
Could
over
be a
2
groundwater source right there.
In the past, there was a spigot on the outside of the building that was busted open.
Yeah.
So that ran for a long time. We
Right.
also did find out recently that one of the valves in the irrigation system at Campbell has been broken for we don't know how long and was stuck open. So we were getting, all the water was flushing out into the system and then going back through the valve. It was like almost like the water is being double counted as it was going back and
Yeah.
forth through the valve. So
With
that valve is now
electricity
been
running
fixed.
it.
So we're anticipating some savings from that.
It's amazing what savings you realize when things get fixed, isn't
You're
it? And
calm.
identified. So anyway, it's no surprise that we are being charged a ridiculous amount for the hydrant and meters. The cost of the water is actually not that shocking, but it's the water, half of the price of the water that our water bill, only 50% of it is for actual water. The
'Cause
rest
we have to
is for
ship our
metering.
water from Hudson back, from Hudson back. to
Right.
us.
So that's at GMS. At Litchfield Middle School, the actual water is only 28% of the cost of our water bill. And at Campbell, it's only 66%.
Only?
Oh, it is 60. Well,
How can
at
that be
least
so
it's 66%.
Why is that so different?
That's
Shouldn't
a-
it be the same?
Right. So we're looking into that as well, I
Yeah,
believe.
so Dick is picking apart the bills to better understand it. And,
yeah.
there's even questions about, does that represent, because like my gut in looking at it is, but we're spraying the water all over the fields at the high school, but using more at Campbell, or I'm sorry, at GMS.
Yeah,
No
it doesn't make
On the
sense.
surface, it doesn't make a ton of sense.
We've been drawing water directly from the pond, if I'm not mistaken.
It depends on where the wells are. That's right.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the wells that are at Dara or near Dara are owned by Hudson. Okay. So we get charged for the distribution because Pennachuck owns the distribution system. LMS and GMS have different water sources. So I gave Dick Henry everything I had on the aquifer.
I'll be interested to hear that reasoning behind all those discrepancies.
It's very interesting. So anyway, it's all being looked into. Dick Henry is on it. He's the right guy for the job. He also spoke with representatives from Eversource, and as we go through with these energy audits and the energy projects at LMS, I wrote in my notes, Eversource guy. I don't know exactly what his title is, but he'll be in the meetings working on the schematics and working on the improvements to maximize our ability to use rebates and any other savings that we can do with the project. So we're working with them on our team, which is good too. I think that's it for me.
So the emergency management team met on the 7th of this month. And one of the things that was presented was something that was talked about, I think the prior meeting, is having an emergency response drill report, which in the past, all 3 schools used a different type of form that they submitted to the fire department. It was all handwritten, because they have to run X amount of different kinds of drills. So it was like a 2-part form. So each one using different. So now it's electronic.
Nice.
All 3 use the same form. All they do is just go to it, click, 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 send, and the fire department gets it, and then they're happy with that.
Awesome.
And it's all the history will be like right there. We talked about at LMS, their PA system, there's different corners that will need an additional speaker because they can't hear. So once they're out there, they don't know what's going on. We also talked, I believe it would be for all 3 schools, as far as walkie-talkies, they seem to be a need to be replaced to a walkie-talkie that will, we think, you're going to talk with John Brunel,
I have
right?
a meeting with John Brunel tomorrow
To talk to the town.
to
Correct,
talk to them about
through the tower.
You
using
mentioned
their
that too.
towers and
We're not sure if the walkie-talkies are capable of doing that, or we have to replace them.
Yeah.
I think the other thing we talked as far as LMS is getting window stickers that say that it's limits, because there's in each room there's one window that doesn't open all the way. Otherwise, it'll smash into the door. So the fire department's requesting stickers of some sorts to identify that's the window, and we also need new window numbers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's about the gist of it.
Great.
we also talked about the blue light warning
Oh, yeah.
system on the outside of the
We're
buildings.
gonna check for grants.
Tom Scotty is looking into that if we look to purchase it, we can get reimbursed through a grant if we buy a system for the district.
Great. And that's to let people on the outside know that there's something that we're in lockdown or shelter in place or something. Okay.
Yeah, we currently have, parents or staff just come back and they just walk in.
I did drop my kid off.
So this would be,
Same day.
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
This would be flashing light,
Okay.
and it's not a special.
Sale in school store.
Kmart.
All right. Grading and reporting. Did Mary cover everything?
Mary,
Or do you
yeah,
want-
gives the best report.
All right. And Perk, same.
Yep.
Mary, thank you.
We have a meeting next
Joint-
week.
Loss.
We haven't.
We haven't met, but did you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so we've engaged in just conversations with our associations about getting the joint loss management process up and going again, and making sure that we have building level safety committees. So our goal is to make sure we involve our employees in examining any issues relative to health and safety in the workforce, and then making sure that we have that joint loss review committee for matters that need to go there. So we've had the committee going in the past, but it has not had a lot of participation. And so we want to rejuvenate that and make sure that that's the right place to be handling questions of building level safety. So
mostly about science and disposing of materials and stuff. Dave was a big person on that
Yeah.
committee.
Is there like we had talked about communicating to our associations what it's about and what it entails. Is there like a one sheet that we can make sure circulates so that people know what they're signing up for if they were to sign up for this committee?
Yeah, I think we can get something developed for that.
That counts towards their evening hours, doesn't it?
It could.
Good. Yeah. All right. Wellness.
Wellness. Lauren and I are going to meet next week to get the wellness committee back in action.
Great.
So, happy about that.
And the town capital improvement.
We have not met again.
Okay. NHSBA. I went to the delegates assembly last Saturday. It was lovely. We got it was 3 hours. There was some heated discussion about one of the continuing resolutions was about using 2019 free and reduced lunch numbers to calculate differentiated aid. And so we talked about that one, and we ended up rewording that resolution to be that it should be calculated to pre-pandemic conditions or the most recent enrollment in free and reduced lunches, whichever is higher. So that way the NHSBA can continue to advocate for that, for as many years as it's affected by the free and reduced lunch program. Other than that, everything else pretty much went as would be expected. So
Did all the resolutions get passed? The new ones?
Yeah. No, I believe one of them did not pass. There were the one I voted according to what the recommendation was for the NHSBA, and if they did not recommend it,
Yeah.
I think it went the way I voted.
Oh,
So
I see.
there weren't any big surprises. All right. Old business. We did the class sizes, so we can check that off the list. Dress code.
So the board, we had a discussion about dress code, and I think late October is a good time to review dress code because we don't have too many violations going on at the moment.
Sweater
It's-
weather now.
That's right. And when it arrives, it solves a lot of dress code issues. So I want to make sure the board is comfortable with what the dress code says before we hit spring weather and it starts all over again. So as you know, the dress code was recently renewed. We had a committee of students and staff at all levels. We had representatives at elementary, middle, and high school who participated in drafting the dress code. And, we struggled this fall enforcing the dress code because what the code says versus what people are able to purchase at the stores and the way students came in wasn't always aligned. And so I don't know what the board's pleasure is. If you want to just take a crack at it, if you want to send it back to a committee for work to bring it back later.
I use the words what Tina said earlier. I think we need to leave it in the hands of the admin team. I think there has to be some flexibility as far as style.
I can't believe you're saying that. Oh,
I'm saying it because it's ridiculous because at the high school, at any given day, there's 40, 50 girls that I'm seeing
know.
their belly buttons.
I know.
The middle school, it's the same thing. There's
Not
handfuls.
anymore. They had a big talk today, I heard.
Who did?
The new principal.
Okay, well, I saw one today.
Well, today was the talk. Tomorrow's a new day.
Tomorrow, I bet you'll see another one. I see no harm in it, number one. Two, I'm walking through a clothing store the other day. There's a mannequin in the young girl section. Guess what she's wearing?
A tank top.
Yeah, I saw her belly button too on a mannequin. It's no big deal. The admin team has much more important things to do than chase down girls that are showing their belly button.
So we let them show their belly button, and the next thing you know, they're wearing
admin
running
team
bras.
I think the
Whatever
admin
they're
team can
called.
take care of that. They know what's appropriate and not.
No, I feel like we have a policy. It should be enforced.
I think it should be reviewed then.
I think students
should be
need to then make it.
I'm going to make a motion that we should have a small committee to review the dress code to go along with current trends.
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
I'm okay with a committee looking at it. But my personal opinion is that the dress code is fine as it is. It's not subjective. I think that you're just, when does it end? Like, how do you decide how high up that shirt can go? And I think the way it's drawn, it's clear. So
It looks like the little pilgrim girl. Nobody dresses that way. A little cutout doll. That's what it looks like. Nobody dresses like that.
I think what my concern is that the belly button has become the new bra strap issue, and that
Yeah.
it is how much of it is showing, is it too much, or the skirt length issue. Like,
Not even
if-
the bra
if-
strap. It used to be the shirt strap. It used to have to be 2 inches. I mean, 2
right.
fingers.
Well,
And then it's
I
like-
just, again, I see a difference of if you can have your shirt pulled down and you don't see your belly button when your arms are down versus you have putting your backpack on and your shirt lifts up a little bit. I see a difference between that, and I come down to trusting the admins to get that right. But if we need to review that to have that flexibility in there, I think we should talk about it.
I think they do think about that.
Mhm.
They don't make you raise your hands to pull your shirt up. Do you have a comment, Mary?
Can I?
You're biting your tongue.
I am a little bit.
Why not?
Go for it.
As a former building admin who fought dress code constantly, leaving it in their hands is a difficult thing to do because you run into that. Okay, so the belly, the just barely hitting the top of the pants, that's, I'm okay with that.
But it
The
turned-
girl that's in the shirt up to here, and I saw a couple of those the other day. I'm not okay with that. Well, then the parent, then it's
Yeah.
well, how come that's okay and my kid isn't? And there's no, you don't have a
We
clear
need
answer for that.
consistency in all
You
three
can't say,
schools.
well, because I can see this much of your daughter's stomach as opposed to this much, because the
that's-
dress
I mean,
code says not.
right.
Like that's the more the more you leave it open to interpretation, the less it's going to be enforced at all, because that's the battles you end
And
up
that's why I
fighting.
think we should have a committee look at it again.
So boys can wear half shirts?
Yeah.
Why not?
In
So they
1995,
could-
they
I think
did.
it's so ridiculous that a boy shows his
So
armpit.
teachers can?
And that's supposed to be like,
And teachers can.
I didn't say teachers. They have their own
This,
dress code. They have their own
this
code.
dress
No,
code.
this is
is
the
It's
dress
for the
code.
teachers.
Okay. I have a problem with, if there's a teacher out there who wants to show her belly button, go ahead, show your belly button.
I
It's
have
the
a
guy.
huge problem with that.
I just come back to there's a time and a place.
Mm-hmm.
Put a
The
flannel
nightclub.
on. Not even. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm fine with them, but cover it up for school. Anyway, we have a motion and a second to reestablish a committee to revisit the policy.
So
Any further?
based on the motion, this is what I'm thinking, is that we reconvene as many people that drafted this so that we're not starting all over again. We're on.
Do I have to do with this too?
Well,
There'll be
that
new
we
students.
reconvene that group. I think actually we have to have new high school reps, and I would say let's just ask our 2 high school reps to join us, right? So they can become,
Oh, Emma
they can
and,
participate in this.
yeah.
And then maybe our elementary student is at the middle. So anyway, we'll make that adjustment. And I'm also thinking that collecting some survey data is not a bad thing, because we wrote this, I mean, just so that we hear from our staff, from the students directly. even
So we're
from
gonna let them wear
parents.
Daisy Duke shorts too?
Well,
I don't think the
wouldn't put that
committee
as a
would
question.
agree
What?
I wouldn't put that as a
They can
question.
now.
if it covers
But they
your.
shouldn't.
They can,
Why?
as long as they're privates are covered. And that's why I think it's the same thing with the shirt, as long as they're covered.
And what, they can wear bathing suit bottoms to school?
Look at the chart.
That doesn't
The chart doesn't match the language is my
Oh.
issue. So the chart in number 1 said clothing must cover the area from one armpit across the other and extend low enough to fully cover private parts. So in Liz's
Yeah.
point, a bathing suit bottom
Mhm.
could be worn to school,
Yep.
but that doesn't match the picture
What, of the cutout?
of the fake person. So that, I think that's the issue, is that the cutout person is dressed more conservatively than what's written in the. And there's, I think that may be where the problem is in terms of enforcement and being able to call someone's looking at you don't match the dummy versus the language says that I can do this. So I do think there needs to be some clarity there regarding enforcement. And again, I welcome the opinion of the admin team. I welcome the opinion of staff. I think survey is a great idea. Let people weigh in.
So we have a
I'm happy
motion.
to be on the committee if you want to switch it out,
I
or
do not want to be on this committee again.
I'm happy to do it.
You're welcome to do it. Fair?
That's
On
fair.
it.
Okay. All right, because I support this the way it is.
Yep.
So that's fine. All right, so all in favor of convening
Do we
the,
get to vote on it before it becomes?
yes.
Oh,
because
yeah.
it's a
Ew.
policy.
The committee is only going to recommend changes to you, so
Yeah.
it'll come as a
This
red
is
line
still-
markup
If-
if there are
If they
changes.
make any
Yeah.
changes.
Okay, all in favor of convening and revisiting the dress code policy, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain? I also oppose. Abstain, so 3-2-0.
Just to be clear, I'm okay with it as it is, but I do want to see, if there's another way that it can be just easily enforced. I mean, because it seems like that's the piece that is,
But it's not being enforced as it is now.
Yeah.
that's what you're saying. I know.
That's
That's why I'm,
Because again,
Yeah.
I think school admin,
but I just don't see how raising this to a half shirt makes it any more enforceable. I think it makes it less enforceable. So anyway, if the committee can come up with an idea.
Yep.
No bathing
I'll
suit
consider
bottoms
it.
needs to be part of it because I don't want to see any
That's
boys
fair.
in little tiny speedos.
We used to have a policy that was extremely specific.
That's, yeah, and
That was no
I fought-
pajamas, no
I fought against that
flip-flops.
because we didn't have time. I felt like with this
Yeah.
picture, you're complying or you don't. So
So also to add to that, I feel like there's some confusion around like proms.
Oh, and
I feel like maybe if they're gonna look at this, there probably needs to be some discussion about that because I know that there were a lot of questions about
even the
that.
homecoming dance, we saw girls
Yeah.
in semi-formal dresses and we saw boys in cargo shorts and baseball hats.
what's wrong with that?
But I think for the dresses, a lot of the dresses had
Or
cutouts.
backless or
Mhm.
cutouts.
So they had like a cutout here or a
Right.
cutout on the side.
feel like-
Technically, would that violate the policy? I think
Right.
it
no,
would.
what's-
But
is the wording?
Private's covered.
Boy, if you're going to turn a girl away at the
Yeah.
prom door.
Yeah,
No,
I-
and nobody
I don't
did,
think we
which was
should.
good.
No.
Right, exactly.
I don't think
I'm
we
not
should.
saying
But
to make it.
technically, that is violating
I'm not
this
saying
picture.
to make it stricter. I'm saying there ought to be.
But
you
is
know,
that a school setting? I mean, the policy specifically states
School-sponsored
appropriate for a
event.
school setting, but it's not school.
You're in school.
Hopefully
There
not
may
We're
every
in
need to
year.
be a
school, yeah.
separate section for dances or, we were just looking at
Formal
the
events
field
or-
trip policy today and it says appropriate dress is required on a field trip.
Mm-hmm.
So we felt the need to put that in
Yeah.
on the field
Ah.
trip side. I'm assuming, I don't know, there's a backstory to that, but
All the t-shirts and
the
the
marching
eighth grade
band in
beach
Hawaii
trip or
might
something.
explain it. I'm not sure.
Right.
So
They were allowed to wear bikinis this year.
They were.
And we may need to, I mean, if it comes down to just being a matter of enforcement, I think maybe we need to revisit the protocols and add those to the policy and what you do when you're enforcing the dress code.
I want to be clear. By reviewing this, I am in no means being critical of the changes that were made by the 2019
Yeah.
committee. And so I'm appreciative of the fact that it is much more neutral. I think I want to address some of the issues with today's dress enforcement, making number one match the picture.
Yeah,
or
I agree.
remove
I agree
things.
with it should match.
So that's more what I'm looking to. So I just don't want it to come across as critical because I know that you did a lot of work
No,
with
I'm
it.
just
And
exhausted with
Yeah.
it. That's all.
Yeah.
And I'm not grumpy about now they want to change
Understood.
my policy. That's not.
No, I know.
That's not my.
And they
That's
may
not my
decide not to
intent at
change
all.
it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
well, and let me just say, whatever comes out of this, we need to enforce.
Mhm.
Yes.
Because
right.
I was frustrated by, well, the district had this new policy, but you're part of the district.
Mhm.
So
This has
whatever
been
the
going on
policy
for
is,
5, 6,
you
know,
7 years.
this is it, and let's
Mhm.
enforce it and just be done with it. And
Mhm.
I know it's a hassle. Why do I have to ask over and over again the same concept? But
Because you don't enforce it.
and some people just don't comply, and so then there has to be progressive discipline.
Right.
It can't always be put on a T-shirt. At some level, it's like you're not complying with a reasonable rule.
Mhm.
So
Our students are made to put on sweatshirts if they're wearing half tops.
Well,
So one
you
of
know,
them-
whatever that
Our
is.
as in Hudson.
Yes, which
Whatever that, I mean,
Yeah.
whatever the protocol is, maybe we need to put that in the policy
Mhm.
and this is the progression.
That can be one of the things that we
Mhm.
address.
Thank you for doing that. I appreciate
no
it.
problem.
All right.
Thank you.
Coronavirus.
Oh,
You know, the rest of the committee right now is already running out the door. It's like, no, I'm not. doing
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
so just me and myself and I on that.
Just
committee.
rewrite it, Heidi. It's fine.
All right.
You
If
and
that's the
Brian
case,
can
I'll
do it.
join you, Heidi.
Uh-huh.
Then I'm in.
So a couple of things on the summary page. So thank you for the advice to list it chronologically from
I
the
love
bottom
it.
up. I think, and what I've done is I've added the colors in by the month. And so, the thing I have to get past is that now I have blank cells at the top of the spreadsheet.
Yeah,
And
I was
That's
like, why haven't
okay.
we updated it in
Yeah,
2 weeks?
it'll be
But you
done,
have.
so
Okay.
we're going to update tomorrow for 10/21 and then the following
Okay.
Thursday, and then we'll add November and we'll just keep doing that. But it is
Yeah.
kind of helpful to see where it's going.
Yeah.
A couple of things to look at on the summary sheet. Nosedive at the end of September, if you look at countywide again. And so, the 400 new cases per 100,000 people over the last 14 days is a little bit disturbing. Numbers in Litchfield, too. I mean, we're not in a great spot relative to the spread around us. And so substantial is the level that we continue to. Our school impacts overall have been low. Status at targeted has remained in place aside from that situation that occurred at LMS.
Mhm.
If we school-based numbers, you can see that Griffin is actually in a pretty good spot. We did have one staff case earlier in the month, and that has now resolved out. Students, there were 2 cases there. And the quarantining of minimal, that's gone from 15 at the start of the month down to 2. So it's trending in the right direction. LMS, there it is. A new staff positive to report, and there are 3 positive students at the school. So staff has not been a problem, and students have. I mean, we had a high of 26 at one point, and we're down to 8. So it's trending in the right direction. And we are hovering around that 7%. So remember, 7% is the border between medium impact and low impact. So we did have that 7.32 yesterday, which tricked us up a little bit. And then the last one is Campbell. I just continue to be bewildered by the numbers at Campbell because they are low.
They probably all already had it last year.
I think
I'm
it's
dead serious.
I think it's a little bit of there was more positivity than even the people who were positive. I think we had asymptomatic cases that now have some natural immunity. I also think that it's likely that there are a higher number of vaccinated students than we know about.
Right.
Because if the vaccine is doing its job, it would result in this. And when you look at other high schools that have shut down and gone remote, I mean, Raymond was a recent example.
Hudson has 6 now. Hudson Alvern has 6 cases.
And, we're not seeing that. So for whatever reason, it's being handled and managed well. Maybe it's all the belly buttons, Brian. I don't know.
Could
But
be.
at any rate, the staff positive numbers are where they need to be. There are, however,
Instead of licking those bubbles, they're staring at belly buttons, I guess.
He said it, not me.
trended from 0, 1, and now we do have 2 positive cases though. So there is a little bit of an increase in those cases for the students. But absenteeism wise, we're in great shape.
Colds going around now,
Yep.
and allergies and head colds and stuff is just the season.
Mhm.
So there are 2 students, but nobody else is quarantined, and
Just one.
all right.
One student
was
quarantined,
Okay.
and you'll notice there,
Oh, there it is. Okay.
they have the number of students waiting on tests, and again, it's looking good. So vaccine rates, I haven't updated that chart in a while, but I'll try to get to that by the end of the week, just so we see where we are. All remote dates, notice that we've had none. So I'm glad we have the tab, and I'm glad there's nothing on it. So, and the last thing to share is I added a definition tab in because the state keeps shifting around. So as of September 17th, we now know that a cluster is 3 or more cases involving individuals within a specified core group. So that could be a core group at school. It also could be if there was a soccer team in the community and that became the core group, they could call that a cluster if an outbreak occurred there. And an outbreak is 2 or more unrelated clusters within a school. So last year it was 3 or more, and this year it went to likely transmission at school. And now they're saying it's 2 or more unrelated clusters. So this group of 3, this group of 3, we don't know the relationship between them, but you have 2 groups of 3, therefore 2 clusters, therefore it is an outbreak.
Okay.
So can I tell you if we had an outbreak by definition at LMS back in September, I don't know if it hits the same threshold. I don't think it does. So we'll just go with it and declare them going forward with the new definitions that came out on 9/17.
Okay.
So that's what we have for the current numbers and, our reopening guidance and masking. I think we're doing a pretty good job, all things considered. We're managing it pretty well.
Any other questions?
And I think the numbers look great, and hopefully they hold up.
Yeah. All right. Were there any questions on the manifest?
They got the answer.
Oh, yeah. Right. Boots. Public input. We still don't have anyone here in attendance. Do you
I
have
will
anybody into
jump
Google?
back into the meet and see if we have anybody there. There was nobody waiting.
Okay.
Are we going to try to reconsider, doing away with this?
Actually, this was something that was discussed at the delegates assembly. I kind of forgot to mention that. So someone brought a late resolution to propose, and it was it was based on allowing board members to attend remotely post-pandemic. So continuing with that. And there was a good discussion about, a lot of districts have seen increased public attendance and people paying attention and correspondence because they have kept their line, the Zoom meetings open and the phone lines open. So I still feel like if it's one more avenue that people can give us input, if
It's
they
an
can't
avenue,
make it
but
down.
nobody's there ever. So it really just kind of waste time. They're more than welcome to come to the meeting live.
I just feel like it's another avenue for people to participate. That's my feeling on it.
I mean, we keep the same line, right?
Yeah.
So it's just
It's just,
It's been
checking
the same
in.
link since the beginning. We have
Yeah.
not changed that link, so it's really easy for people to find. And
Especially going into cold and flu season. I feel like there's going to be more people that aren't going to be able to, maybe don't have COVID, but aren't going to be able to necessarily attend in person and may want to give feedback. So at least through the
How
winter.
many people do you think will join us live? I mean, through Google.
it just takes one, and that's an opportunity for that
Between
one
now and the end of
person
the
who
year.
couldn't come down.
3. I'm putting a bet.
And even if
Are you
it's
over
three,
under?
It's worth it.
Should we take a vote as a board?
No, because everyone's for it.
Okay. Thank you.
I'll now end the call.
All right, thank you. And that
Well,
will
I'd
bring,
leave it open for another 5 minutes, just in case somebody decides to call in
we
late.
spent more time discussing it than checking in the meet. That brings us to non-public session, RSA 91-A:311 A through C. The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee or the disciplining of such employee or the investigation of any charges against him unless the employee affected has a right to a meeting. And 2, request that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the hiring of any person as a public employee. C, matters which, if discussed in public, would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the body or the agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting. I'll take a roll call vote and say good night to our viewers at home. Brian,
Yes.
Tara,
Yes.
Liz,
Yes.
and Heidi,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. Thank you, and good night.